Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Thursday, April 10th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in the historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting such business that may properly come before the City Council.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for April 10th, 2025. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during tonight's budget presentations. Input options during the live meeting include in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input for the presentation they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you're participating via computer, indicate which presentation you would like to speak to in the chat function, or note that you would like to speak during the appropriate section. If you're participating via phone, indicate which presentation you would like to speak to during the appropriate section. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. This information will be reiterated during the meeting. Attendance for the session is as follows. Mayor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Council members Farber.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Resnick.
Here.
Sprank.
Here.
Wethel.
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan. City Manager Van Milligan, I see that you're currently muted.
Here.
Thank you. So first on the agenda for items set for public hearing, we have set public hearing on fiscal year 2026 city budget.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones.
move to receive and file the documents and set the public hearing for April 28th. Second.
Point of order, adopt the resolutions as well.
And adopt the resolutions. Thank you.
Second again.
I haven't got the computer awakened yet, so I didn't see that.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second to receive and file, adopt the resolutions, and set the public hearing. Adrian, would you call the roll, please?
Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Farber.
Aye.
Jones. Resnick.
Aye.
Sprank.
Aye.
Wethel.
Aye.
That motion passes 6-0.
So we will move on to our budget presentations.
Okay. Well, last night of a fairly long week, but we're all ready to go, so we're good. So looking forward to hearing from everybody today. Thanks for coming. So Tom, we're up for emergency management first.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and City Council. On behalf of the Dubuque County Emergency Management Commission, I thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name's Tom Berger. I'm the Dubuque County Emergency Management Coordinator. So our mission statement for the Emergency Management Commission is there. It's through the partnerships and collaboration. We continue to build resiliency for our communities by planning for, responding to, mitigating, recovering from disasters, utilizing a coordinated approach with the resources provided. The structure of the Emergency Management Commission is set in Iowa Code, Chapter 29C, which states that it's the commission is made up of the mayor of each community, each city within the county. Also, Fire Chief Scheller is the representative for the city of Dubuque, as well as the Board of Supervisors Chair, Harley Potoff, and Dubuque County Sheriff Joe Kennedy also make up the commission. Last year, our highlights, obviously we had the flood response to the Mississippi River flood in June, July of 2024, which did end up getting us another presidential disaster declaration to reimburse some of the costs for that. Also, we've been doing a lot of training with the police department, sheriff's department, the fire department in Dubuque have been coming out and teaching the volunteer fire departments, and we're bringing them on board with our rescue task force training. And we did have a full-scale countywide exercise last year in July at the Epworth Elementary that was, we had over 100 responders and pretty well received throughout the county with the small town law enforcement, sheriff's office, obviously the police department, fire department here in Dubuque. So thank them for their help with planning and that. We did get our hazard mitigation plan approved through FEMA last year, so that plan will be valid for another 5 years. As well, I wanted to mention our collaboration with our District 6 emergency managers. There's 14 counties that make up the District 6 in eastern Iowa, and we we help one another. Me being one person in the office, if we have a disaster, we can count on our neighbors, as well as I've also been to some of their EOCs and worked there. So that's just another layer of background or backup that we have to respond to emergencies. Storm responses were up last year. In 2024, we ended up with 14 thunderstorms. We did have one derecho that went through on July 15th, and the flood warning that we had along the Mississippi. So that picture there is the night after the derecho went through, how calm and beautiful it looked that evening. So we did have quite a bit of damage, but it definitely could have been a lot worse. A lot of the 100-mile-an-hour winds were up in the northern part of the county, as well as some major damage down by the airport. We exceeded all the state training, exercise, and planning requirements as required through the State Homeland Security and the Iowa Administrative Code. We also been working very hard with our regional COAD exercise, which is Community Organizations Active in Disaster. So that's kind of the nonprofits that work together that we rely on to help us during a event and to respond and really to recover from a disaster. As well as we had multiple city EOC, Emergency Operations Center, tabletop exercises throughout the year. Future initiatives, again, continue the work with committees and the 911 board to develop the new 911 Communications Center. We're also working with the fire department, the Public Works, and Raycom. Our outdoor warning sirens are 26, 27 years old now, so there's showing some wear and tear. So we got a plan, and through your CIP with the fire department, we are getting parts and making sure that the sirens are going to be good for another 26 years, hopefully. So we're also continuing our national incident management system and our incident command system training for the local communities and first responders. We also continue to work with the Dubuque Community Care Group, it's called. It brings in people from the railroad and, again, our regular fire department, police department, hazmat team to kind of prepare for an event, a hazardous materials event on the railroad, and it really focuses up and down the Mississippi River. So a lot of the private industry are on that committee and help with the planning for it. And we're in the midst of our hazard analysis and risk assessment that is funded through a grant through the LEPC, or Local Emergency Planning Committee, and we hope to have that done by June 30th. So, and that's about every 4 to 5 years we update that. Again, continuing to coordinate the response to severe weather events and flooding events. We're required to do our 20% update on our comprehensive emergency management plan, as well as a severe weather plan that we do annually. Continue working with the schools on safety assessment through the governor's initiative from a couple years ago, radio procedures, as well as expanding our rescue task force training. Again, want to make sure we meet all the grant requirements for the local emergency planning committee, as well as the emergency management agency. That way we're eligible to receive them grants as they become available. And we're due for renew our storm ready status with the National Weather Service. What that is they come in and look at our notification protocols, how we work with dispatch, and with other plans and procedures we have, and then they'll certify us in Storm Ready, which is a National Weather Service initiative. Again, we're really getting along well, and we're happy with the way our Alert Iowa system is working. Previously it was a code red. Thanks Randy Gale and his crew for helping promote that and assisting with that, as well as all the agencies that use it. So there's multiple ways we can do that, and it also ties into the 911 centers with the Smart 911 program now that they're on the same platform. So our requested property tax support is there for this year. This is our revenue summary from the last few years. You can see we do receive a federal grant, and we've been capped at that since prior to 2012. We are asking and did receive a slight increase from both the city and the county. So after we received the federal grant, what the difference we need is split basically on population, with 60% requests from the city and the other 40% from the county. So that's our funding from this year is for next year is requests from the city of the $116,400. We do have $200,000 in my budget for the hazardous materials response. You see that. So if we have an event in the county where the Dubuque Fire Department comes out with the hazmat, then I will gather all the costs of all the responders, and then state code allows me to bill the responsible party for that, so we can get reimbursed for the response, especially if they have overtime or any supplies that are expended. So we don't consider that in our 20% balance. Impacts of public safety, again, the incident command training that we coordinate and offer, as well as our National Incident Management System training. Mutual aid agreements, which locally through our county fire and EMS, as well as if there is an event and we needed to have assistance come from other jurisdictions in Iowa, they have the Iowa Mutual Aid Compact. And as well as if we had to have FEMA resources come in or requests through FEMA, that would be the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. So all of them are coordinated through the EOC and requested from the state. Our emergency notification alert system are being used more by the public safety agencies. Again, make sure we meet our planning, training, and exercise, as well as opening and operating the Emergency Operations Center in support of public safety in a major event. So this slide just shows our latest presidentially declared disasters. Again, it shows quite a few. We're up to 12 disasters since 1999 with the 2 recent floods along the Mississippi River. And then some of the money that came in through just the public assistance side towards response to local jurisdictions is shown there. So again, we're eligible for that because of the partnerships we have, the collaboration with all our public safety agencies, and making sure that we are compliant with all the required planning, training, and exercises for the emergency management, as well as all our local responders. Performance measures, we've been meeting our goals with the performance measures. One thing we note on the outdoor warning sirens, we do not test them anymore during the pretty much December, January, and February, just because it's too hard on the equipment and the batteries. That was a recommendation from Wayland with some of as we learned more about what it's doing to the sirens. So that had dropped to 9, including the statewide tornado drill test that we did at the end of March. So, and that's what I have there. I'd be willing to entertain any questions.
All right, well, thank you very much, Tom. We're in a public hearing to discuss the emergency management budget for fiscal year 26. I don't think we have any members of the public present for any public input tonight. How about virtually? Anything? All right, thank you both. Back to us then for any discussion. Mr. Resnick.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, sir. A question about the Federal Emergency Management Performance Grant at $39,000. I mean, you talked about being capped. So could you talk a bit about pass-through is capped by the state? Is that $39,000 still because of a continuing resolution that's gone this long, or what's?
No, it's roughly the state, through the Emergency Management Performance Grant, receives about $4.5 million, of which they send half on to the local emergency management, or 48% roughly, onto the local emergency management programs. So the top 10 or 11 counties, from a formula that the state runs, has it capped at 39,000. Otherwise, it kind of helps the smaller counties so they're able to develop programs. So that was just a cap that's been there since
Okay.
they changed that, so. it
Because we
has,
have the
nothing
tax
to do with
base to
everything going
maybe
on.
support that a little bit better than some of the smaller counties. We have a tax base, is that,
Yeah, I think, they actually goes by the population, the top 10 populated counties, but I'm thinking it's all tied with the tax base that they have too. So that, when they did that, it allows more, if they just tied it to the population and the assessed value, it'd be, like the Polks and the Lens would be getting a lot more money.
Sure.
As would, we would as well, but
I mean, $39,000 isn't what it used to be.
it's not much, and it hasn't changed in, the last 12 or 13 years since they did it.
What does it take to change? I mean, what do you guess? I mean, we're just looking for $10,000
Yeah.
for the airport. I'm just looking at this.
Oh, yeah, it'd be, it's set up through the Homeland Security. I think the manager or the director comes up with the formula, so.
I see.
But we've had multiple directors, and it's really up to the director and the governor how they send that formula on to the locals.
Thanks for
It'd be
the
nice if they'd
information.
increase the money coming to the locals, and I know that's been a initiative of some of the legislative groups to try to get that, because some states send 80% through, but it's really up to the state on how much they're actually going to send through, and some states keep it all too. So it's kind of all over the board with the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jones?
Tom, I've known you for a long time, and I got to tell you that of all the things that we invest in, probably the biggest bang for the buck comes from your agency. And just watching all the things, it's not just waiting around for something bad to happen. It's preparation all the time in a whole lot of directions. It's connection with all these agencies in the county. Dubuque County probably operates better together than any other county I've ever had any connection with. I'm talking about police getting along with fire, getting along with state troopers, getting along with sheriff's departments, paid fire departments, getting along with volunteer fire departments, mutual respect and mutual desire to get the job done correctly and safely. Very different than a lot of places that struggle with that all the time. And you're kind of the central piece that's the glue that holds all that together. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, we have projects here with the training center, and our radio system and everything just wouldn't be possible if we didn't have the great working relationship with all the entities. So appreciate that.
Ms. Mayor.
Farber?
Could you, how is the new data center cutover coming, the 911 center?
The 911 center. I've been involved in the meetings, but I really don't want to take Jessica's
TBD, Jessica.
thunder with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's exciting to see when just for me, when I was a dispatcher for 8 years before I went to emergency management. So looking at where they're at now and the space they have, and you go out there, and it's going to be beautiful.
I'll look forward to the
And
conversation.
thank you for your support of that.
No, Ms. Bethel?
I want to ask you this question. I don't mean it as a loaded question anyway, but just from your view, in the, say, next 5 years, as a council, where do you think, when it comes to emergency management, we should focus beyond what we are now? And I know I really feel like we do a great job. And so I just want to know, in your eyes, is there anything you can think of that would take us to the next preparedness level?
Well, you probably did one of the greatest things with the B branch and how that hazard mitigation program helped, because I started before that, and we had like 2 or 3 rains within the first 3 months that I worked, that we were on the north end in that whole area where people just always had water in their basements. So doing the hazard, looking at our hazard mitigation plan that we have and projects that you're able to fund and able to afford, keep the working relationships together, I think. And we've been very lucky here. I mean, we have our statewide meeting, and we've had nothing but support from all the mayors, the councils, and the board of supervisors when it comes to emergency management and all the collaboration we do. So, just staying up on it. And, I really appreciate all the support we receive, and we wouldn't be able to do it if you had some of the issues that some of the other counties have. And it kind of comes back to what Rick was talking about, the not working together. And so, but I think just continuing down the path with the support and the NIMS and the ICS training is really big. We do go to a lot of conferences where disasters happen, and then people are really good about, sharing lessons learned. So we try to bring that back to everybody here. So that's trying to stay on the front side of the education. So
I recently was able to hear Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, speak at a conference. And he said something that really impacted my thoughts about disaster preparedness as they dealt with their bridge collapse. And he said, it doesn't matter, I'm gonna not directly quote him, but it doesn't matter someone's political party. What you need to do as a leader is put the right people in the right positions with the best knowledge, and you will never regret it in an emergency situation. And I'm really proud that we have you and that we have so many in our county and city that do that. And I think that the team that's been built over decades of work is really impressive, and I thank you.
yeah, I've worked alongside many great leaders. I mean, we've had some of the best here, right in Dubuque and Dubuque County. So I'm lucky that way, really am.
We all are.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
one last comment. I should take the stage for this every year, but I think it's important for people paying attention and for all of us in the room to understand that we've codified smoke detectors are required in homes, codified CO detectors in homes. We haven't codified weather warning devices, and that's key to everybody's survival. Hardly any of us are going to experience a house fire. A few of us might experience a high level of carbon monoxide because of an appliance malfunction, but every single one of us living in the Midwest is going to have to get out of the way of some severe weather at some point in our lives, probably at multiple points in our lives. And the importance of that NOAA weather radio or signing up for the Alert Iowa system is tremendous. And I hope everybody will do that. It gives us a fighting chance. The forecasting is getting better and better, and Tom can attest to this, but it used to be a tornado radar detected or a spider seen entering Dubuque County somewhere or about to, and the warning area would be the whole Dubuque County, pretty much no matter what. Well, the Weather Service has fine-tuned that now, so it can be swaths of the county, much smaller areas warned, and therefore much fewer warnings issued where there's no immediate threat, and some would say crying wolf, much more. So the warnings, I think, are more severe. Nighttime's kind of a different story. Spotters can't see the storms coming at you at night. Warning area might be wider for just that reason, that the spotters are less effective after dark. So anyhow, I wanted to make that pitch. I make it every year, and it's an important one to keep track of. You need those three pieces in your homes to keep yourself safe.
Thanks, Mr. Jones. So, yeah, I don't have much to repeat. I would echo the same praises, though, especially on the collaboration front. I've gotten a chance to witness that in multiple different opportunities, and it's been great to see how well we do collaborate as a county. Just that we get along with our county government so well and government officials, but also the different cities and working together so frequently. And I think and I appreciate Chief Scheller, who we'll talk to later, sitting in for my position that is appointed to the emergency management there. So we have the right people in place for sure, all across the county, really. So that's great. I had a question for you, and this is, you pay attention to legislative issues and things that are going on. I mean, I know you're talking to everybody from across the state. I'm not hearing a whole lot about our legislature talking about any added funding to disaster preparedness and disaster, like dealing with disasters really, or anything like that. Is there much talk of that you're aware of and making increases or improvements?
Not that I'm aware of. We've been watching real close, the emergency management levy, emergency management agency levy. We're hoping that someday that will come through. It was pulled this year because, again, they wanted to change the composition of the emergency management commissions. So, but it didn't sound like it had a very good chance of getting through anyway. But that would be one way that it'd really help us locally here as far as the 911 center. Some of the other counties use something similar to that, but that would help us ensure that everybody pays, the same, if they're in the rural areas or if they're in the cities or whatever. So it's just a funding mechanism that it'd help as far as staffing and everything with the 911 center.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that perspective. I think it's important that we continue to talk to our legislators about that. It's a little surprising, honestly, because of the fact that everything that happened in Northwest Iowa this past summer with just the catastrophic flooding that they were dealing with there. And we're going to see what happens this summer. It just seems like every year some part of our state and part of our region is hit with something. And I'm hoping it's not the Mississippi again this year. It'd be nice to see that stay at a regular level for once.
Yeah, there's a lot of some policy changes and some state code updates as far as disaster relief and what can be used. I don't know if there's any more money, but at least so far, with everything going on with the federal government and the state, there hasn't been many cuts that we know of to the actual response, the response funds.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, last thing I'll say is I appreciated your answer to Ms. Wethel's question. I didn't expect you to say infrastructure. I don't know why I didn't expect that, but I didn't expect it, and I appreciate that you said it. That's a harder one in some ways than adding immediate people in positions or equipment and things like that. Even though all those things are important, the infrastructure takes long-term investment, and that's what the people decided to do with the B branch, and that's great that is something that you look at as being helpful. I think as we think about that helps me to frame my thinking on that too.
That's a hazard mitigation project that gets talked about at numerous times at different state meetings we go to. If they're talking hazard mitigation, is one of the premier projects that really help a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, Tom, thanks for all your work. Thanks for everything that you do, and I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, we will move on to our second of 4 public hearings tonight, the Emergency Communications Department.
Okay. Do you need the note view? No. Nope, I don't have any notes in there. Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, that'll work. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Jessica George Rethwish, Director of Emergency Communications. I do have 2 of my leads with me, hiding in the back row. Marty Benda and Caitlin McDade came with for this evening's presentation. We'll start with the mission statement. It's the same as what I had up here last year. Ensure the appropriate response is dispatched that meets or exceeds the expectations and needs of the public that is requesting service through effective and efficient dispatching of emergency personnel to the scene. We've got a few new faces, 5 total. Wency joined our team in May of '24, full-timer, and then we have Rihanna, who came on as our full-time records clerk, but she works in dispatch, helps us with warrants and no contact orders, running criminal histories, trying to keep the paperwork at a minimum for the staff while they're working. Crystal Campbell joined us part-time in April, and then she bumped up to full-time in June. And she's a welcome back. She was a dispatcher with us about 5 years ago. She took a little break and she's back, and we love having her back. And then our 2 most recent that we added is Brianna, joined us in October, and Laura joined us in November. And those 2 are still currently in the training program. They'll be wrapping that up hopefully by July, if everything goes as planned. Here is our leadership. It shows the 3 leads with 1 open position. That open position is still from when I moved from lead to director. And once we get our newest 2 completely trained, we hope to promote someone into that lead dispatch position from our full-time staff. And here is our breakdown of our staff. Full-time, we are full currently with full-time, first for that in a very long time. And part-time, we have 1 PRN, Andrea Miller. She works about maybe 5 hours a week, and then she fills in when full-timers go on vacation, or if someone calls in sick, we check to see if she's available to come in, and then our records clerk. Some of our highlights, we got all of our staff adapted to the Tyler time and attendance. That might not sound very big, but it was huge, because they were just used to writing their times on a piece of paper, and we'd get all the calculations at the end of the pay period, but they've done very, very well adapting to having to punch the clock and add shift differentials and everything else that they need to put in there. The state of Iowa provided us with a new online training portal. I have training that I give to them every month, but it is one training, and they have to do that specific training, where the state portal allows them to pick from a variety of training. At this point, it does not cost anything to us. The state is providing that, no fees. So it's a nice variety, and they can keep up their training hours while they're working. They still continue to assist with the camera work. The police is in the progress of getting the PPC manned and staff trained. But until then, dispatch is still first on the cameras a lot of the times and have helped solve a lot of stuff. Our Prepared Live that I had came to you with last March, everyone does log into it on every shift. I do have, as of Monday, I took the counts from March of 2024 to this past Monday. It's been used 3,211 times for text messaging, and we've collected 285 media through the Prepared Live. And that's been anywhere from a video of a domestic that's happening that the police can view, to a house fire that happened in the county. We were able to let the county agency know where the fire was at, what was going on. They were able to get other units rolling before they even got there, which helped save a lot of that house. Future initiatives. My new communications center. It's consuming my life. The walls are up. The mudding and taping is done. We are on to painting, which is very exciting. All the colors are picked out. I've had quite a bit of staff input for paint colors, carpet colors, council colors, how we want it set up, what we want it to look like. We do currently have meetings there every other Wednesday, and each day I show up, I cannot believe the progress that they're making. They're still on time for everything. This last week, I was able to meet with what could be a potential council vendor, and they were able to provide a drawing that we were not sure what we would do with our current councils down at 770 Iowa Street. And this particular vendor was able to render a design to me that has 5 of those 6 councils moving with us to the backup center that's inside the new center, which is almost as big as our current center, conveniently. So that was kind of put a little ease at that we would be able to take some stuff with us. They do still have us on target to move in, hopefully November of '25, if everything stays on task. Conlin is our construction manager, and they, as of right now, plan to turn everything over to Raycom for radio and phones, IT to get the computers set up sometime between July and August is tentative right now. And then however quick the councils can be built, computers can be put in, all of that stuff does take a little bit of time. And our second big project is the new CAD computer system. We have weekly meetings for that with also a lot of staff input. We're trying to revamp call types for police and fire, and it's also important that we bring county agencies into that as well, because it will affect everybody from Dubuque PD to all the smaller agencies in the county, and same for fire, paid fire or volunteer. Currently looking at going live with that the end of 2026. And I'm very thankful those two things are not in the same year. Because I don't have enough people for that. Here is our requested property tax support, breaking down to show $19.20 average homeowner. And then in this slide, we also have the county's share. We had changed that as of July 1. They are now half. I bill them every month for half of our operating costs. A little bit about how 911 impacts public safety, aside from being a big part of the public safety. Dispatchers quickly gather the information from the caller, and they assess what's happening and make sure they get the units dispatched as quickly as possible. They can facilitate communications across multiple different responding agencies, making sure everyone has access to the important information of whatever incident is happening. These include, but not limited to, Iowa State Patrol, DNR, Dubuque County Sheriff's Office, Dubuque County Conservation, Iowa DOT, County DOT. We have the ability to use advanced forms of technology to pinpoint exact locations of emergency callers, ensuring responders can get to that location. Again, city cameras, they provide live, up-to-date information for the responding units. And then they're also trained to stay on the line with the caller during an emergency event until the responders arrive. We want to make sure all of our callers feel safe and protected with us on the line, whether we're talking, just listening, or offering whatever help we can until those responders get to their door. Here is our slide on the 911 surcharge funding. The colors look a little close up there, but so the bottom line is your wire line, and then the middle gray is wireless, and the top line is your total amount with the two of them together. Not a huge change, a little dip in the wire lines, which was expected. Total phone calls handled by the Communications Center for fiscal year '24. You're going to see a couple of different numbers tonight for phone call handled, and it's been me having to call out our phone vendor a little bit because I did not think the initial numbers were right. I'm pretty confident these numbers are now right, hopefully. 25,735 911 calls, 100,335 non-emergency calls for that total of 126,070 calls. And on the PowerPoint here, it just breaks it down by month of which ones are 911 and which ones are non-emergency. Calls for service for the main departments, Dubuque PD, Sheriff's Office, Dubuque Fire, County Law, and then the no agency events are things that dispatch would have handled, canceled calls, calls that we would have cleared out, weather events, different stuff like that. Gives the total of 110,132. 911 answer time, again, this is going to be for fiscal year '24. We have 97% of our 911 calls are answered in 0 to 9 seconds, 2% 10 to 14 seconds, and 1% is the 15 to 19 seconds out of all 25,735. And then this slide, I took all calls, both 911 and non-emergency for fiscal year '24. And 96% are answered in the 0 to 9 seconds. We've got 3% in 10 to 14 seconds, and then that 1% in the 15 to 39 seconds. Super proud of my staff. They do an awesome job on the phones. Calls for service by hour of day. I do just keep this slide in here to show that it trends pretty much the same year to year. There are some years that pull a little bit ahead of the others, but the normal quote-unquote quiet time is usually 5 to 6 a.m. And then in the afternoon, rush hour, schools are getting out, those times do pick up for us. Recommended improvement requests we put in for a full-time dispatch position that would be, once the position is trained, would work Monday through Friday day shift to help during the busier hours. In exchange for getting the full-time, I am giving 2 of my part-time positions back. We don't have dedicated part-time hours on our new 12-hour shifts, so it makes more sense to go ahead and give those back. And we don't have a lot of interest in our part-time shifts when we post for them because they don't come with benefits, and I completely understand that as well. Improvement package number 2 was for a laptop. The public safety dispatchers are now taking their school courses online for emergency medical dispatch, emergency fire dispatch, and emergency police dispatch. And if I can try and check a laptop out from the police department, but there's not always one available. And I don't want them to have to sit in dispatch to do the class because I feel like there's way too many distractions. Most of the instructors require them to have their camera on. You cannot have your camera on in dispatch because of sensitive information that's in there. So that's the second improvement packages for that laptop with the Microsoft license. And then the third improvement package is the request for purchasing Prepared Assist or Prepared Live. This request, we currently have is the free version, so we can text with the callers and we can video with them. But the paid version allows us translation up to 19 languages, auto, if you're talking to them, and 140 languages that it can translate with, if you're texting with the caller. That is huge for us, to be able to have that type of communication with all of our callers if we're not understanding what they're saying. And then also this paid version does a live transcript of every call that's viewable in real time, to be able to copy it into the call for the officers to know what was said on the line. Sometimes they come to the center to listen to the call, so this would be very handy for that, especially when the center is going to be all the way on the other side of town, hopefully soon. And then we do, like I said, they still have the ability to text. They can still do the live video and the pictures. It just has a little bit more privacy and security with the paid. Our performance measures are showing goal met on them. This is where you're gonna see a little bit different of a number on the total phone calls as 115,000. I was not confident that was right. Part of that being in May of 2024, we did implement a phone tree on one of the lines that comes into dispatch, so that did take some of the call load off of the dispatchers. I did have that number wrote down to bring with me, but I had a little incident in my office earlier today, and that number's not available. And I couldn't find it, and I couldn't remember it, so I will have that next time. And then the numbers of schools that we presented the 911 in schools to, we did have goal in progress for that, because there was one school we were still trying to get into. And next year, we'll be able to mark that as goal met, because we did get into that school. We have taught 1,159 first graders about when to and when not to call 911. That's cell phone Sally. She's in our video that we show the kids. 25 schools and 61 classes is what we touched. Caitlin is one of our instructors, myself, and then Crystal and Lisa Lugrain. Also, there's 4 of us that go around to the schools and split them up amongst us. This is a new slide this year that I added. When everyone hears 911, right away they think police, fire, emergency, something's got to go quick. So I just wanted to add, aside from all of that, the dispatchers do a lot of other work that flies under the radar. For calendar year 2024, and this is also with the help of our clerk who works Monday through Friday, they did 6,015 validations, which that's touching every warrant with running a criminal history, new driver's license, new license plates. They check everything on every warrant to make sure it's valid and doesn't need to be updated. They did 2,541 warrants, 885 no contact orders, 280 missing persons reports, and I'm the primary tape maker, so I did 549 tape requests for 2024, which is about doubled from what we did in 2023, and on the track we're on for 2025, it'll probably be tripled. And that's all I have.
All right, Jessica, thank you very much. We're in a public hearing to discuss the Emergency Communications Fiscal Year 26 budget. Still don't think we have any members of the public with us, so I'll just move on to virtual. Nothing there. All right, back to us then. Yeah, Mr. Spring.
Thank you. Thank you for all that wonderful information, because a lot of people, Jessica, don't really, they just take the call, you guys get it taken care of, and then they hang up, and then you have to deal with it. But I do have a question about your second improvement package, the one about the Prepared Assist program.
Okay.
I think it's a wonderful program. I definitely want to make sure it works. The question is, though, you said it does live transcriptions of every call. And you're saying it only does 30,000 calls.
On 911 call, only on 911 calls.
So, okay,
Sorry.
so let's just back up. So I call in. Mm-hmm. How do you distinguish that it's a 911 versus a non-emergency?
There's a button on the Prepared Live.
Okay.
That will indicate that it's coming in on the 911 line.
Wonderful.
And I haven't seen this part of it in action.
Okay.
He gave me a demo
Okay.
when he was down to visit, but Grant County uses it, and there's a couple of other counties in Iowa who have been very pleased with it. And I definitely think with their updates, it's moving in the right direction. So I'm pretty excited for it.
And how long will they store those calls for?
they keep everything at Prepared Live, and they keep them, he says, as long as we need. Again, this is new and everything. I feel like their company is growing and changing so fast that I'm getting updates from them monthly of new things that are coming out. If we want them, we send the request through them, and then they send it to us.
Gotcha.
If it's not captured right at that time of the call.
Okay. That was my question.
And they're quick. I can request it at noon, and I probably have it by 12:30. I mean, they're on it.
Okay.
When you do request.
Well, thank you. That's all I had.
All right.
Ms. Mayor?
Ms. Farber.
Okay, and now let's talk about the communication center. I'm just so pleased that it's almost there. You mentioned that the county is going to be paying 50% of this for the build-out now that we have and for all the technology that's coming in, which is going to be wonderful, by the way. So I've seen the list, and I'm just really happy for you because there's a lot of applications there that will make the dispatcher's life much easier, and there are some artificial intelligence and cloud computing activities going on as well, so I think that's really important for efficiencies for you guys. You mentioned the CAD computer system.
Yes.
Which is part of the automation that you guys will be working with on a daily
that's-
basis. 27, you said, 26.
26, yep,
Right.
the end of 26.
And is that funding already?
Yes, I
in your
believe that went
CIP?
through that went through the police to cover police and fire and dispatch.
Okay, so
And
that's,
that is integrated with the jail, and it's a whole
okay,
big
okay, so it's a
package.
collaborative.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I can't wait to see us.
Oh, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, if they'll let me, have a little bit of a open house or have people come out just before, when Conlon turns it over, before they start doing all the rest of the setup, so they can, anyone who wants to come can see actually how big and spacious it is. We're going with 8 councils on the floor, and we have room to expand to another 8 if we need them. So the space is, we're definitely using it smart to be able to add those councils if needed in the future.
Right, and just so people understand, there is a firewall established
Yes.
between what you are doing, what the data center will be doing, and then what the child care groups are doing, so that no one is interfering with the other co-op businesses and child care that is out there at this point. So I think that's an important message for folks to
Yes.
know, too.
Yes,
All right, thank you. I can't wait to come out.
it's exciting.
Thank you.
Ms. Bethel.
Sure. I remember when I started on council, which was April of '22, as part of that, we get to meet with each department. And I remember sitting down with Mark Murphy and talking about how we had a lot of part-time, but people want full-time.
Yep.
And so I really appreciate you bringing this to us. I am thrilled to support it. I think for the staff you have now, so that we make sure that they enjoy their job, and the stress and demand of their work is incredible. And so to work a lot of overtime, we want to try and make sure that they're here for the long haul. So thank you for bringing it to us. I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Jones first this time, then Mr. Resnick.
First of all, I'm happy for you that all this is moving along so well, but I'm also worried about you. Have you got all the help that you need to get this? You've got 2 enormous projects with the CAD redo and the
I
physical
just do
plant redo.
CAD 911 center during the day, and then I do the rest of my work at night. I'm fine.
Okay. I want you to stay that way.
Yeah, I'm good.
I also want to acknowledge the movement towards full-time people in there. That's the first big step to getting the world to recognize these 911 professionals as the other piece of public safety. They deserve the enhanced pension benefits and other recognition at the state level that firefighters and police officers and deputy sheriffs get. And it's about time that we move that direction, because all of you guys matter as much as anybody else in this room tonight, and to the citizens. And just one anecdotal story, last week I left a council meeting and encountered a pickup truck parked on Bluff Street facing the wrong way. Didn't think much of it at first, went around the block and took another look and said I should call dispatch and have someone take a look at it, just so it's out-of-state plates, probably the guy's gonna get in it when he comes back from wherever he is and drive up Bluff Street the wrong way. And talking to the dispatcher, describing this truck and giving her the license plate. Oh yeah, I see it. Just like that, she's looking at it. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
And that's just a wrong way parked truck in the middle of the night, so nice going.
Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. On your improvement package number 2, the last bullet point is more security and privacy controls for administrators. What do you mean by that?
So right now, we don't have the ability to see the audio translation that's going to be on the new one. And the way it's explained to me is the dispatchers themselves will not have access to that. That will be more locked down to be administrators only or whoever we give permission to see it right away. And then, as I said earlier, it does go back to Prepared Live and we have to request it from them if we don't get it in a certain time frame. But the security, they have enhanced it to break it out a little bit more for the roles of administrator, director, dispatcher. So they don't have, right now, they don't have that ability. But if a dispatcher would want to go in and pull a video of like a call that happened earlier today, they can get to that video and they can find it if it's still there and hasn't went to prepared yet.
Okay.
So that will be shut down.
I see. So do callers ever request anonymity?
They do.
And is that granted them? Everybody has can be anonymous.
Yes.
So so it doesn't really matter who calls in. I mean, the name of the person who calls in for an emergency is never an issue.
They will try and ask a name. Dispatch will say, can I have your name? If they say, I don't want to leave it, they don't want to leave it. Sometimes for, what would be a good example? An OWI stop. If somebody calls in, they think they're following a drunk driver, a lot of times the officer or deputy will say, do you have the complainant's name and phone number? That may make a difference on their end on if they stop it, I'm not sure, but the dispatcher just has to say, yes, I have it. They'll talk to you, no, I don't, and then they make their case from there. But if they don't want to leave their name, it goes in the call where it says caller, they put anonymous.
I see. Thank you very much. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, I'm worried about you for another reason than Mr. Jones is worried about you. Are you going to be okay with all that room that you're going to have?
I'm going to be
'Cause,
fantastic.
I mean, you're going to have so much room to move around. I don't know what you guys are going to do when you're in there. It's just going to be a lot of space.
Mayor, after today, I'm ready.
You're ready. Yeah. It is way overdue, and I think everybody knows it, and I'm very happy that we're finally, it's just, it goes back to a longer story of how cool it is that we found this place and the community worked together to be able to create a space there, and the idea came up, hey, we really need a new emergency communications center, and that's where it landed. So it again, back to the last presentation, great collaboration to get it done, but thank you for all your work on it. I know the work is falling on you now, and it sounds like it's a lot. Like building a new house from the sounds of it, yeah.
Well, I did tell my husband we would never be doing that. I've learned that. I'm good where I'm at.
We're done with that discussion.
Yeah, yesterday I try to always take a dispatcher with me if we have enough staff on duty to go out and just see it. It's exciting for them. And yesterday, I took Lisa, one of our full-timers, with me, and I said, get ready, because we're going to have to pick out shade colors, encasement colors, and we did really good while we were out there, but it's nice to get their input and have them involved with it.
That's the one thing I was going to mention. It's actually a really, really cool opportunity for your team to be able to build something that's going to be a legacy that goes forward beyond their time with your department to make sure that they're building the best possible place to keep everybody safe in the way that you do. So it's a really neat opportunity to be able to do that.
Exciting. I'm excited for everybody to see it.
Yeah, good. Well, we're excited to see it too. And I don't have any other further questions for you. I'm glad to see that we're approving these recommended, or these packages here. I think everybody agrees that this is an important one to move forward. Sorry, Mr. Resnick. Yeah.
Real quick, they're anonymous if they want to be, but you know the phone number that is calling you.
If it's on 911. If it's on non-emergency, not all of the phone numbers come through for us.
But 911's
911's
do,
phone number
just
is there.
in case you need to locate that phone.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. All right, well, Jessica, thank you very much
you.
to you and your entire team for all the work you do. Okay, moving right along. Next up is the police department.
Well, good evening. Joe Messerich, Assistant Chief of the Police Department. I'd like to introduce some of our senior command staff, Captain Scott Baxter, Captain Jason Pace, Captain Marty Stile, and Captain Brendan Welsh, and to thank Investigator Soppy and Officer Conley and Officer Nugent for the security tonight. I'll be presenting the budget to you this year, starting off. Actually, before I get into our core values, I also want to recognize Miss Susan Merriman. She couldn't be here tonight. She's our police accountant. She's our master of all things budget. We really appreciate the work she does for us. Moving on to our core values, you can see our mission statement in here and our motto down at the bottom, what if it were family? That is a relic of Chief Dawson's days. Early on when he was our chief, he challenged us to treat everybody like they were our family, whether it was a family member that made a mistake or a family member that was a victim of a crime. You treat that person the way you want your family treated, and that really resonated with us. Here's how our department's broken down. Just going to point out two changes. If you look in the CID column and the Staff Bureau column, in CID you see our new non-sworn computer forensics position, and in the Staff Bureau column under Captain Baxter you'll see our PPC, Precision Policing Center technicians, our crime analyst. Those spots have been added to that unit. I'm going to spend a little extra time tonight talking about PD staffing. That's a council priority. It's a PD priority, so I want to paint an accurate picture for you. This is our authorized strength. FY26, we're going to have 109 officers. That's down from FY25. But as a reminder, we gave up those 6 vacant non-sworn positions to fund our PPC, our crime analyst, and our computer forensics, and also the software to power that stuff. So we're down to 109, but that was a cut of, again, vacant positions. It didn't cost the city any boots on the ground. Sworn vacancies, so 14 for 2025. Now this is a snapshot in time. That's how it looks right now at budget. It looks like we're down in vacancies, but remember we reduced our sworn strength, so that's a little misleading. This is a better indication of our staffing right now. So this is our actual strength. We've held pretty steady in the mid-90s the last couple of years. We're currently at 95. In a couple of weeks, we're going to hire 3 more. That'll bump us up to 98. We have a retirement pending in May, drops us to 97. So you can kind of see how that ebbs and flows as the year goes on. And here's a breakdown of that current staffing. So out of that 95, we actually have 87 that are ready for deployment, right? We have 1 in academy, 1 in a field training, 1 on military leave, 2 on parental leave, and 3 injured currently. So 87 right now are filling their primary roles. And then just kind of a breakdown of our years of service. We are a young department. Our biggest segment of officers is under 5 years, and then half the department is under 10 years. This is just kind of a review of this current fiscal year's wage plan. So if you remember the presentation last year, what we did was we added more than doubled the amount of pay steps and had some targeted raises put in there. So if you look at the yellow columns, you can see that the raises for our more senior officers were bigger than our raises for our more junior officers, and the reason for that was twofold. We took the information from the wage study that showed that our more junior officers were close to that 50th percentile while our senior officers lagged behind. So we wanted to prop up that senior officer wage, get it closer to the 50th percentile. And we're also hoping that aids in recruitment, right? So when an officer's hitting that, retention. So when an officer's hitting that 4-year mark, they know that they've still got pay steps in front of them and their wage is going to remain competitive compared to our surrounding agencies of similar size. This is the FY26 wage plan. So just like last year, taking 5% across the board, spreading it more evenly this year across our pay steps, but again, targeting raises towards those more senior officers. Those FY25 numbers did not get us to the 50th percentile, but FY26 will get most of us there. Our more senior officers are still going to lag behind a little bit, but the FY27 numbers should get them across the 50th percentile finish line. But it's important, though, to keep in mind that those 50th percentile numbers are based on FY24 wages, right? So that's a moving target, too. And then just to lay it out in front of you so you can kind of see it, if you were a top step officer on our department, this is how your raise structure has kind of looked in the last couple of years, again, trying to get a more competitive wage. And so thank you for that and supporting that initiative. So when we talk about retention and we talk about what we're doing for our officers, a lot of times we don't spend enough time talking about our non-sworn professional staff, and I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit about them tonight. It's a growing segment of our department. With the addition of those non-sworn professional positions, that's now grown to 13 if we're full strength there. It's a tremendous group of people that back us up. We really appreciate what they do, and basically our sworn staff deserve a lot of attention. They're wonderful folks, and they work really, really hard for us, but we don't want to forget about our professional staff that's really, really helping us out. As far as our recruitment efforts, applications in 2024 are trending up. This is a credit to Captain Baxter and his recruiting team in the training office. If you compare this to like 2014, 2015, in those years we would have tested 1 time and drawn that many applicants. To get 155 applicants, that's 4 testings and constant recruiting efforts by Captain Baxter and his team. So it's great to see those numbers trending up. Unfortunately, though, those able to make it to our certified list are still relatively low, right? Only 29 passed the written, the physical, got the interview, and made it onto the list. We were able to hire 7 officers last year, welcome them to the department. It's important to point out, though, that we rescinded 11 job offers, right? got into the background phase, and it doesn't mean that they were a horrible person, but we just either found something where we said no, or we found something where we said not yet, right? And it's very tempting to hire 11 more people because that puts us right knocking on the door full strength, right? But we don't want to compromise our standards, and we don't want to put somebody on the department that's not ready. So that's kind of a credit to Captain Pace and again Captain Baxter on, getting good applicants in and then properly vetting them. Our Community Resource Officer program is still going strong. Last count, I think we have 19 officers on this department, including one sitting in this room that at one time was a Community Resource Officer. If you see the one that is handcuffing 5-year-olds in this collage, that's Officer Weiss, or soon-to-be Officer Weiss, I should say. He's one of the 3 we're going to hire next month and send to the academy. Great kid. He was a police explorer when he was in high school, Community Resource Officer in college, and I'm very proud of him and the fact that we get to hire him and he gets to become DPD. So a great story. And when we go to our national trainings and conferences, we talk about recruitment efforts. Growing your own is about the most successful strategy out there, and we can do that with this program. Calls for service by calendar year, so thank you to Jess for covering some of the stuff for me. A little bit of dip in calls in 2024, just shy of 50,000. Here's our Part 1 crimes against persons. I think this was the only performance measure we didn't meet. Our target goal for this is less than 225, and we were a little bit above that. Our numbers were exactly the same as last year in total crimes against persons, but what made that number up shifted slightly, but fairly consistent numbers. Crimes against property, they're down this year. That's because of a decrease in thefts. We're still trying to get a handle on why those thefts went down. Theft is a very complex crime to report on, but one great thing that we have now is a crime analyst, so we expect to be able to get better information basically from our crime stats and more consistent information moving forward. So I think you're going to be very happy with these presentations in years to come because of Sam, our crime analyst's work. Shots fired by calendar year, a little bit of an uptick since 2023, 17 confirmed shots fired cases. 5-year average is 16, so we're about on par for our average. Crime resolution. So these slides here include suspended cases. We like to track that as well because it's a good measure of customer service, but it's not really apples to apples when you compare it against national clearance rates. This is more of an apples to apples comparison, but when you use national numbers, these numbers came from the FBI's Crime Data Explorer. It's a little bit tougher, it's a little more nuanced, and the numbers are 2 years old because the 2024 numbers won't be ready till next year. So I just chose to focus on April since we're in the month of April, and I picked aggravated assault and burglary, and you can see we've got very good clearance rates compared to Iowa and the U.S. So how do we do that? I mean, first and foremost, our police officers, right? I mean, we have first-class officers in this community. We have a very robust training program. When they hit the street, they're ready, and they're wonderful people, right? We talked about our high standards and the fact that we had to say no to 11 people. The byproduct of that is if you're wearing a DPD uniform, you are a top-notch cop, and we're very proud of that. Secondly, our community involvement, engagement, and support, right? We couldn't do what we do without the community's help, without your help. Our community is very engaged with us. They send their kids to our youth camp. Our Police Explorer program, they might have sat through our CPA, right? They take advantage of our engagement efforts, and they're just as invested in us as we are in them. Cutting edge technology, so Jess talked a little bit about our PPC getting up and running, and we'll talk about that more later. But having that PPC, our license plate readers now, our traffic camera infrastructure, the RMS mobiles project that Jess kind of alluded to, her version is CAD. Our version is more the RMS mobile computer side. Sheriff's Department has JMS. All that is a part of a bigger public safety software package. And then a good reputation, right? Most people know that if you come to Dubuque, you're probably going to get caught, right? Like our cops are good, our technology is good. It's not a great place to come and commit crime. Just a couple of pictures of our community engagement. If you go to a community event, you're probably going to see one of us there, right? Whether it's our event that we're hosting or a partner event that we've been invited to. It's one of the funner parts of the job. So every year our senior management gets together. We come up with a strategic plan that's usually after your goal setting so we can take your goals and priorities into account. Our focus areas are similar to years for us, right? Retention, recruitment and hiring, leveraging technology, and training. So training we break up into a couple of areas. We focus heavily on leadership training, our field training program, and then our higher risk operations, and I'll break that down a little bit later. So some of the highlights from this last fiscal year. Awards and Recognition Night, we had another one. Some of you were there. Thank you. If you haven't been to an event, really encourage you to attend. It's a very special night. We follow up every ceremony with a family wellness session for the officers and their families. We did that again this year. Our new collective bargaining agreement with those targeted raises went into effect. Our ALPR system got up and running. And then training, we basically doubled our training last year for our officers. So defensive tactics training with scenario-based training, emergency vehicle operation training, so pursuit driving tactics, rapid deployment, so active shooter response. A couple of months ago, everybody got a healthy refresher in active shooter response with some scenarios thrown in. And then our typical mandatory yearly topics were also covered. Just a couple of pictures from our awards night. Here's Dr. Keaty and Dr. Otavi, and I'll talk a little bit more about our wellness grant later, but these are two psychologists from Medical Associates that have really invested heavily in our department. Dr. Keaty serves as our peer support team advisor, and these two both presented at the family wellness session for us this year. So some current initiatives that are supporting our strategic plan. Supervisor training, this one's twofold as well. So departmental, trying to identify the next generation of leaders and supervisory staff and getting them to first line leadership training, and then executive. So a couple of years ago with your funding, you added more money to our training budget so we could send command staff to nationally recognized executive trainings. And we have seen a tremendous return on investment from that. The ideas that are coming back, the leadership tactics that are coming back, the networking that is done, we've really seen a huge benefit from this. Law enforcement software transition. So again, Jess covered this too. It's an 18-month project that we're all busily working on. Go live is October of 26. Our building study. So you're familiar with our building issues. We've kind of talked about that at length. Last year you approved $50,000 for a building study. We asked for some of that money to be reallocated so we could send a team of police and fire to a training conference for agencies that are in our position, right? People that are trying to decide, do we want to upgrade our existing building? Do we want a new building? How do we future-proof it? How do we fund it? What do we need to keep in mind? We thought it was responsible to get a base level of knowledge in that internally before we just started really spending that money, right? We didn't want to spend the money on the first shop that came along and have that go stale. So we're kind of excited to see what this training is going to do for us. The chief and the sheriff are still working together to solve what issues they can with space. Female locker space is a concern. When Jess finally leaves, that'll free up some space for us too, so that'll kind of help. So our Precision Policing Center is up and running. We've got one tech hired. We're in process of hiring 2 others. Our crime analyst position is filled. She's received crime analyst and residency training, and she's really cranking out some great products for us. And we're hiring in progress for our computer forensics position. So this is kind of a passion project. I alluded to this earlier. Last year at about this time, we applied for a DOJ grant under the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act, and we found out last fall that we got it. It's a 2-year grant, $118,000. The primary thing that's going to fund is officer wellness check-ins with Dr. Keaty and Dr. Otavi. So everybody from that new officer that just got out of the academy to Chief Jensen are going to have a private one-on-one session with one of those psychologists to talk about coping strategies, resiliency, their health. Are you doing okay? And if you're not, what are your options? How can you improve your position? That type of thing. We launched that. I think we had our first check-ins in the month of February, and again, that's going to go on for the next 2 years. The other thing that grant is going to fund is we wanted to increase training for those that support us. So our peer support team is phenomenal. Our law enforcement chaplains are great, and Dr. Keaty and Otavi, we really value them. So we kind of earmarked some money out of that grant so we can upskill our peer support team, get the docs some law enforcement specific training, right? And get some more tools in the toolbox for our chaplains. So that's what this picture is here. We brought in a firm from California, retired police sergeant and a board certified police psychologist that put on an advanced class for our peer support team, chaplains, and Dr. Keaty and Dr. Otavi. And we invited the sheriff's department also at no cost to them. So it was a very successful class. And then finally, the last thing that grant funds for us is one big training event for all area law enforcement and their families. So finding a national keynote speaker or trainer that can come in and put something on for our folks. Accreditation, we're still an accredited agency, have been my whole career, well over 30 years, since 1993. Just talk briefly of our crisis intervention team. You met them earlier this week when they showed off their award. Officer Nugent, Corporal Cross, Lieutenant McTagg, and our law enforcement liaison, Caitlin. And you can see why they're needed, right? So prior to COVID, our brain health calls were in the 450s-ish, rate, and now we're well into the 700s year after year. So the need for CIT is great, and they do a great job for us. We've talked, this comes up typically when we talk about school resource officer staffing. I'm happy to say that we are still at that 6 officer level in our SRO unit. We had 1 vacancy at the end of last school year, and we were able to fill that vacancy at the start of this school year. So we filled 1 position of the SRO expansion from a couple of years ago. The remaining 2 positions remain unfilled, but we haven't taken a step backwards despite our staffing problems, and we're happy about that. We also hosted the DARE conference last year, so a shout out to Officer Horner, who was the president of the Iowa DARE Association that brought that in. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for coming and speaking that day. Still heavily invested in emotional intelligence. Chief Jensen and Lieutenant Fulmer are our local gurus for this. They support our PD initiatives and then the broader citywide initiatives under that umbrella. And then the brass tacks. This is our requested property tax support, so $18,072,424, and then the average homeowner can expect $282.83. One improvement package to talk about this year. This is SRO car cameras, 16,000 reoccurring. The background behind this, when we first got those cars, just to save some money, we didn't outfit them with computers and cameras because the officers spend most of the time in the schools as opposed to the cameras. But we do want to make sure that our SROs have the same tools that our patrol officers have, right? Because it is important for them to have cameras, mobile computers, and the like. So last year we were able to fund the computer piece. This year we're now going to fund that camera piece. So that is all I have. I'll welcome any questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We are in a public hearing to discuss the police department budget. Still not seeing any members of the public here. Anything virtually? Thank you both. All right. Back to us then. Who's first? Yeah, Ms. Wethel.
I'd like to ask a little bit more about the, my impression was that you went to the event to learn more about space utility and what expectations were. That you've already attended that? You have not?
In May.
Oh, you have?
No, we will be attending next month.
And when is that?
It's in May. I don't have the exact
Okay.
dates.
And so you don't have a crystal ball, but as far as when you come back, how I want to make sure that we're aware of what you learned so that as we go into goal setting, we can learn that before we start talking about how to support you. So I don't know what mechanism we could, but maybe have an, I don't know, not really a work session appropriate thing, but just a report out on what you learn when you kind of come back together and have a discussion about your thoughts and the trajectory for it. It's our goal setting now is not until September, so that gives you maybe a little time to come up with some feedback for us, but I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that won't be a problem. And thanks for giving us this much heads up. And I think it's going to be Captain Welsh as our captain going, so he'll be sitting up here telling you all about what he soaked up.
No pressure. Thank you.
I'm going to follow that up real quick. So after you go to that, is there any sort of sense of a timeline of when you'd want to be making the plans to change space? I mean, we know that space is opening up because we've got emergency communications leaving at the end of the year. And I'm assuming that, things are going to be coming in our direction as a city council to talk about specifics for, what moves will be made and how space will work. But what is the general sense of a timeline aside from going to the conference? And if the answer is we don't have one, that's fine too.
It's a difficult question.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
Joe, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in here.
Yeah.
City Manager Mike Van Milligan. So as of now, we've not made really a case to the council about any kind of space needs, whether it's major remodeling, additions, different facilities. Who knows what it's ever going to be, but until we present information to you, there is no timeline, because until you get information, you decide how it fits in your priority lists based on the needs and demands of other things that also are needed in our community. That's when we'll start to establish things like timelines.
Got it. Yeah, and that's basically the answer I was thinking we were going to get. But I appreciate the suggestion of having some discussion about that before September of some sort, so we have a sense of what's going on, I think, and we can figure out the right mechanism for that to happen at a meeting, I'm sure. Okay, next. Mr. Jones?
I'm just thrilled with the direction that this police department's gone the last 20 years or so. The what if it were family thing just impresses me. I tell that story to everybody that'll listen when we're talking about policing and public safety in general. And I'm seeing it on the streets. I'm hearing it from citizens all over town, how well they're treated. Even the bad guys are treated compassionately. And you guys just continue to make me proud every time I turn around. I bump into somebody else that has a good story about our police department. And you're so far ahead of the pack in the emotional IQ and brain health management and other things. I do think that our brain health numbers are up partly because we're defining it better. We had plenty of people with brain health issues that I dealt with in the fire department years ago that we were identifying them as behavioral issues, not necessarily illnesses. And I think we've gotten a lot better at that. That's a very good thing. But anyhow, keep it up. You just make me very, very proud and very happy that I can sit here and support you.
Thank you.
Ms. Farber?
So another proud moment, just like the finance department, I think that the police department is also a model for use of technology and for best uses for a community our size. I'm just very impressed that we're using all this cutting-edge technology in terms of the cameras, all the infrastructure, the license plate readers, the things that you have in your car, and the access to the CAD cam in the future, and all the things that you are doing in order to make things a little more efficient for your team. Proud moment for you guys and proud moment for the city because it's a good step to move forward, and we're going to have a lot more AI applications and best uses for the police department as well. So thank you for being a good use case, a test case for us.
You bet.
Yeah, Mr. Spring?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Joe, for everything you guys are doing. I know citizens are, like, to repeat a lot of what Mr. Jones said, they're happy with everything. Getting down to a couple things that we initiated that we helped you guys out with, where we got the tasers approved. We had asked for a report on those, and I don't think we've ever seen a report about like how many times they've been used. And then as well as when we kind of changed the rules regarding how we address our homeless population, does that kind of fall under your brain health calls, or we were kind of concerned with those two pieces of things that we were doing
It's
with our
definitely
community.
tied into our secondary responder model. I mean, we're not the only department that works on that piece. I mean, to this day, we still haven't had a charge filed under those ordinances. We're able to use other means to try to solve that problem. To the taser piece, I know we did a work session for council on taser, but if you want refresh numbers on a report, that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay, that was all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones?
be sure you get your yardstick up before you get too excited about gaining that dispatch space. By today's standards, it's barely a closet.
Born a couple in there.
We are really beating up on the emergency communications office, aren't we? I mean, just the actual space itself. Okay. Well, Assistant Chief Mesrich, this is a different tone than we've heard, I think, from the last few budget cycles. We've been very, very concerned about staffing levels and been concerned about, where we're going with things. The message you just gave us tonight is a bit of I don't want to say completely turning the corner, but I mean, we're looking around the corner at this point for some improvements that have been made. I mean, you laid it out in the early part of your presentation about, I do think, and I appreciate that it has been helpful to look at the salaries and the wage compression, and that's actually been a very helpful thing for the department. It sounds like that's going in the direction that it needed to go and continues to go in that direction.
Very well received.
Yeah, good, okay. So, and then I think you've come up with some really good ideas as a department on how to make adjustments to deal with the staffing challenges and use the tools that are available to us. Ms. Farber pointed out some technological tools that are there, ways that we can sort of reorganize so that if we can't find people right now to be able to do the jobs that we expected to have before, we just reorganize parts of the department to make it actually work with what we have while still needing some more. I mean, we still don't have everybody we need to be able to get this done. But it sounds like things are moving in a direction that is more positive and more hopeful than it's been in the last few years. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I agree with that 100% as far as more hopeful. Now, we just need to get that hope to translate into results, right? And there's no finish line when it comes to retention and, the satisfaction of your employees, right? But we're trying to upskill the supervisors. We have a great supervisory staff, and we want to keep it that way, and we want to enhance their abilities even more. Because if you've ever worked for a poor supervisor, you probably didn't like your job very much. We want to make sure our people are supported emotionally, right? They have to see some horrible stuff out there, so we want to make sure they got the right supports in place. And it is a very competitive market for law enforcement right now. Everybody's got vacancies. Everybody's bumping up their wages. Everybody's trying to steal everybody's people, right? So it is very easy now to jump to a different department and probably make a little bit more money. So that's why focusing on those wages, and not to keep beating a dead horse, but we really made a good step last year. We're making another good step this year. If we can keep that momentum going, we'll have a competitive wage.
Yeah, that's well said, and I think well received up here. So I appreciate you bringing that up. The last thing that I'm going to say is that I do think, if there is one thing that you all do that is the major difference maker, I don't necessarily think it is the reorganization and the technology and the wages and things like that. I think the real difference maker that you as a department do that really separates you, I think, from other police departments that I hear about when I talk to other council members and mayors and people from all over the country, is your human connection with the people who live here. You're really good at it. And when you just said there's no finish line to that, absolutely no finish line to that. I mean, you are relentless in your pursuit of connection to the people who called Dubuque home. You go to those events, you handcuff the 5-year-olds. No, I'm just kidding. That was a great joke, though. You go to those events, you're there with kids building that trust. You're there with families building that trust. You're talking to people to the point where when something bad does happen, when we have a really challenging event, and we had one near the end of last year, when something difficult occurs, the first reaction is, who can we call to get around the table to have a conversation about this as a community? It doesn't become us against them right away. It becomes, how can we talk about this together? So as a community, we all work through it together. And I think what it does is it humanizes you as police officers, which is probably one of the biggest parts of the problem in the country today, is that you're too often not humanized in that way. You are people. You are people who live here. You're people who care about this place, and you show that on a regular basis. It is a constant pursuit, though. It's not something that you're right. It's never going to have a finish line. So I encourage you to keep it up. I think it's making a huge difference in your ability to do all the things that you want to do, all the way to solving the crimes at the rate that you're solving the crimes that occur in this community. I tell people frequently this is one of the safest places in the United States. In fact, I'm going to talk to some students, brand new students and families at Loras College on Saturday morning. They invite me for orientation, and I go and talk to them. And that's one of the things I say to them, is that we're one of the safest communities in the United States. And your child that you're moving out of your house and into a college dorm is moving into that community. And it's thanks to the work that that your department is doing. So thank you very much for all that. We sincerely appreciate it. Yeah, Ms. Weffel?
I had just one other thought, and I forgot to ask it. I know you had put information about the Iowa Women in Law Enforcement Conference, and it's going to be held here in 2026, which I'm excited for us to host that. Chief Jensen in the past has talked about 30% by 2030, and I just wondered if you had any data, and if you don't today, that's okay, but...
I have some figures I can give you. 19 female officers right now.
Okay.
I think the national average, last time I checked, was somewhere between 13.1 and 13.8.
Okay.
And so 19 officers out of 95, my math was 20%. So
Great.
we're not at 30, but we're doing pretty good.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks for that question. All right. Thank you,
You bet.
for the presentation. We appreciate all the great information. Keep up the great work. All right. Okay. We are flying tonight. I mean, I got to tell you, this is a lot of fun. All right, we're at our final public hearing tonight. So, fire department, we're ready for you. And well, hey, and Chief, take your time. I'm serious. Take your time. Do not feel like you need to rush. We want all the information you got.
There's no fire, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I should tell you that Jessica promised we'd be getting home early tonight, and I said, all you got to do is refuse to answer questions, but she took them anyway.
Jessica, you really shouldn't make promises like that. Not with us.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council. It's a pleasure to present the fiscal year 2026 budget to you. Today I'm joined by my senior staff. We have Deputy Chief Kevin Essert, who oversees the operations of the suppression budget. We have Bureau Chief Marty Fitzpatrick, who oversees the EMS, and his EMS assistant, Sam Janke. We have Bureau Chief Josh Napper, who oversees the training division. Then we have our shift commander, Dave Grass, and his driver here, Alex Miller. So we're excited. Amy Scheller, fire chief for the department. This year's been an exceptional year for the department. Our mission statement is to protect, assist, and educate our community and visitors with pride, skill, and compassion. A couple really important things, accolades that we have as a department that we had for several years is ISO Class 2 rating, and we're nationally accredited. Not as many years as the police department, but we'll be going into our second cycle in the coming years, next year. So there are 313 accredited fire agencies globally. As far as ISO rating, that judges us based off of our fire response performance, and it's broken into 4 areas. Emergency communications is 10% of that. Fire department is half of that, water supply is 40%, and community risk reduction is 5.5% of that. That's additional consideration that they give us. In Iowa, Dubuque Fire Department is only one of 6 accredited agencies. Quite a few new faces this year. We kept the training division, training bureau really busy with 2 fire academies, and we hired a fire prevention inspector. It's always nice to see new faces come into the organization. On the flip side of that, when we finish our career, we end up retiring, and so this year we've retired and soon to retire 5 individuals. This represents approximately 140 years of experience, so we're thankful for their time and their dedication to the foundation of the organization. 104.16 full-time equivalents. Attempted to break this down into administration versus operations, so it's quite confusing. Administration are the 40-hour positions that work Monday through Friday. Most of the individuals sitting with me, sitting here today, represent the administration, but the operations are each of the 3 shifts. So we have shift 1, shift 2, and shift 3. Those are the 56-hour positions. Our staffing progression over the past several years, obviously fiscal year 2022, we had 92.16. And we're sitting today, fiscal year 25, at 104.16. So we're really thankful for the opportunity to grow our divisions and to grow our organizations. In 2023, we increased our ambulance service by 1 additional frontline ambulance. We went from 2 ambulances to 3. This was an important move for the organization. But I wanted to show the visual on this. This represents 6 people. There has to be 2 people per shift to drive that ambulance, 2 people on the ambulance each day. Fiscal year 2025 highlights for our administration division, strategic planning process, pretty exciting for the department. This occurs approximately 1 time every 3 to 5 years. Strategic planning is twofold. It's internal strategic planning, which we talk to our internal workers, different ranks and different years, and then it's an external stakeholder meeting, which we just held in February. This was led by Bureau Chief Josh Napper. It was a fantastic opportunity to speak with approximately 25 community stakeholders. They gave us their feedback on how we deliver services, some recommendations, and then we were able to discuss what their expectations are. We currently have a survey out requesting some feedback from our community, and then we'll evaluate those responses, approximately 250 responses or survey results so far. Our annual report, we conducted this for the first time that I know of this year. It's really important for data transparency and to educate not only our responders, but also our community. What is the call volume at each of our stations? What is our turnout times? What type of calls do we have? What's our primary drivers in our performance metrics? So once you see it every year, you start to look at, are we performing better? Are we facing some challenges? And then what we need to do to close those gaps. Employee reviews, we're doing that for the first time this year as well. They're going well. We're getting some great feedback. And we look to see what some of the goals and objectives some of our employees set for themselves in the coming year. For our training bureau, a big win, and Tom Berger had talked about this earlier, was that county training facility. It trains approximately 400 firefighters. It needed to be updated. These are some pictures of the new props, which we call the burner props. That car is not a prop. That's an actual picture of an incident. But this will train our firefighters in the tactical hands-on scenarios. Also helped train our company officers and our safety officers. And another success in 2025 for our training bureau was our safety and training captain. Thank you so much for that support. This individual is working a 40-hour work cycle. They're Monday through Friday. Eventually, we'd like to get this as a 24-hour position, but we'll work toward that. We'll work toward growth. That safety and training captain responds to all structure fires, large-scale incidents and events, and also trains our personnel on hands-on tactical training. I remember last year we had discussed how sad it was to see a firefighter stuck behind a screen running through protocols when they're a hands-on performer. So seeing them out there pulling hose, throwing ladders, and doing what they really enjoy doing is rewarding. So thank you for that support. On the ambulance EMS side, we implemented a CIP for cardiac monitors. Again, thank you so much for this support. We're rolling these cardiac monitors not only to our ambulance, but also to our suppression vehicles. So with 3 ambulances, we only have half of our stations with that ALS capabilities. And now we're in every single suppression vehicle with enhanced ALS capabilities. So if a fire engine arrives on the scene first, which is a common question that we take, like why is there a fire engine there? It's because they have ALS capable equipment and they have properly trained paramedic personnel. So they can begin life-saving measures immediately when they get on scene. And the addition of advanced airway video laryngoscopes. So some fiscal year highlights for suppression and operations. We've been working really aggressively with our dispatch center on call handling times. We're seeing an improvement of up to 30 seconds, which is going to be critical for our station location study and some of the conversations that we're having there. Just to put that into perspective, a decrease of 30 seconds has shown an improvement of about 10% of our response. So we strive for 6 minutes for EMS calls and 6 minutes, 20 seconds for fire calls, and we want to do that 90% of the time. For prevention and community risk, we've added a fire inspector, and we've also implemented some pre-planned software. The fire inspector has helped us improve our inspections by over 100, and that'll continue to grow. So we were at approximately 700 inspections, and they're targeted to hit 800 this year. The pre-planned software is important. As you know, it's difficult to understand everything that goes on in a building. This particular picture shows City Hall, and it's pre-planned, so it shows the square footage. It gives them an idea of the effective fire flow if that building was on fire. Talks about hazardous materials that might exist in that facility, where the nearest hydrant is, where the lockbox is, where the fire alarm panel is. Previously, we used to draw these out on a piece of paper, put them in a notebook, and then we would add comments as we learned about the buildings. And now when we do our inspections, we can add comments that we see, any hazards that we see, and we can update them as we go. The pre-plan populates on dispatch, meaning it comes to the computer based off the address that CAD receives. So there's no digging through manuals, there's no digging through electronic files or going to an H drive to try to find the information. It's there. 3-year budget support summary. These are the completed CIPs. When I said we had a great year, I mean it. We have a lot of support, and we're thankful for that. But this is the progression of some of the CIPs that we've completed in fiscal year 23. We received budget approval for 2 ambulances. Those were delivered in 2025. That's how long it took us to get those ambulances built under contract and brought in. In fact, we needed a little assistance from city legal on those 2 ambulances because of the difficulty that we were having. We did a Fire Station 4 kitchen upgrade that was completed in fiscal year 2023. That kitchen is fantastic. It's a nice area for those firefighters to not only train, but to eat and to discuss, what's happening for the day. Budget approval for a fire station exhaust system. This is a vehicle exhaust capture system, so it removes any of the particulate that comes from those diesel engines out of the air that those firefighters are breathing. So that was led by one of our captains, and it was completed in 2025. In 2024, we received budget approval for Engine 5. It was delivered in fiscal year 24, and we received approval for Engine 6, which was delivered in fiscal year 25. We received budget approval for Truck 4. That's going to be delivered in fiscal year 26. And we received approval for an ambulance, and that was delivered in fiscal year 24. Another success that we had were fire station storage sheds. Each one of those firehouses, when I walked through the first time that I was hired, I received a tour. We noticed that there were a lot of things on the apparatus floor: trips, slips, hazards, chemicals, generators that stored gasoline, and we needed to get those off of the apparatus floor. So each station got a storage shed. And then we did a Fire Station 5 bathroom remodel. In fiscal year '25, we received approval for portable radio replacement. I know earlier we heard PD was covering quite a few of the things for fire in your budget and your CIP. On this particular case, we're helping PD out. So we've got a CIP for radio replacement, not only for PD, but also for our airport. We received approval for a fireboat. We're looking forward to that delivery in 2026. And then we received approval for fire station generator replacements. These generators were more than 20 years old. They needed to be replaced. Some of them had to be wheeled outside. If we lost power, the firefighters would have to actually manually open the door and push them outside. Now they're mounted on the outside of the fire station. They have more up-to-date technology that will do automatic testing and let them know when they're down. I talked about the training tower improvements. Budget approval for Fire Station 6 and 3 windows and door replacement. I don't know if any of you have driven by Fire Station 6. They did some phenomenal work in that neighborhood, and that community has come around, made some wonderful comments. And that's how we want our fire stations to be seen, as those members of the community. We're going to continue to move forward with Station 3 and do something very similar. They've gotten their doors replaced and their windows. Cardiac monitor replacement I talked about, and then we took delivery of Truck 1 in fiscal year that was a fiscal year 2022 CIP. We took delivery of that last year. So that took quite a while to get those vehicles in. Future initiatives, we talked about this one in the station location study, and this was important because a difference of 30 seconds in the call handling time or in our overall response time plotted stations slightly different, placed stations as far as orders of what moves we should make slightly different. So now that we've realized that and we're starting to see these really serious numbers in the beginning of this year, it'll position us to move into that station location presentation. And also we have that 2026 accreditation site visit coming up, which we're really excited for. We talked about these. These are accreditation recommendations. When they come to visit the fire department, they will look at us top to bottom, they'll look at our processes, and then they'll leave us with some recommendations. And last time they left us with 21 recommendations, and each year we report out on the progress that we've made on these recommendations. We tie these recommendations, our strategic planning process discussion, into the recommendations and the requests that we make to City Council and to improve the department. All right, future initiatives for our training division. While there are quite a few initiatives that we have in each bureau, we're just going to showcase a couple. In this particular one, we're going to be working on our specialty team training, identifying job performance requirements, and then getting our team members to the training that elevates their knowledge and their expertise. Safety reporting and improved department safety is one of the big ones. As you can see here, we're starting to collect really good data on our injuries. In this one, it shows 2024 injury reporting, and you see a spike there in strains and sprains. We dove a little further and looked at our strains and sprains data to see, okay, backs, shoulders, arms, legs. And then the training division worked with one of our firefighters who happens to be a physical therapist, and he did ergonomic lifting, ergonomic movement training for all members, even our admin attended it. And it was pretty impressive, some of the things you take for granted just in moving and lifting things. So we're looking to see that number decrease, and then we'll go back at any other spikes that we see. Future initiatives for our ambulance and EMS bureau. This is exciting. This is a newer initiative that was just proposed to administration. They want to be recognized as an Iowa EMS training program, and I think that's pretty fantastic because right now we have changed our hiring practices to allow EMTs to apply, and I think that if we support the EMS training program, we'll have more EMTs that can test. This will also help us with employee recertification and continuing education of our own members. Suppression and operations, continued improvements in response times. We're going to continue to look at our turnout times. Not much we can do about our travel times. Our CAD implementation, we're working with, as Jessica noted earlier, we're working with some of our nature codes and how the CAD works now. It's actually given us an opportunity to be brave in the space that we are in with the current CAD. We're doing pre-alerts, which we hadn't done before. We're messing with system configurations, and like I said, we're learning a lot. So when we roll into this new CAD, I think we're going to hit the ground running. And then transparency and data. And what I mean by that is, once we get control of our data, I'd like to make that data available for many people to look at. There's members of our community that might benefit from some of the data that we're collecting. And so we'd like to do that maybe on a forward-facing portal or a Power BI type of portal. Prevention and community risk, future initiatives. We want to identify all inspectable properties and get those logged into the system. We want to assign a risk and a response score. So some buildings are dangerous than others. Some are newer and have fire prevention systems in them, and some aren't. We also want to look at community risk data and program evaluation. So this particular slide, it shows all our cardiac arrest data in the city of Dubuque, our cardiac dysrhythmias, and our chest pain calls. So if we were to roll forward with an AED implementation, the spaces in red are the areas that we'd want to focus on, maybe the parks that are in red or the public buildings that are in red, rather than just distribute them through the community. We can navigate this data in multiple different ways. We can look at falls in our elder population. We can look at mental health calls. So this is pretty exciting for us, and it's fairly new. Fiscal year 2026 requested property tax support, $12,722,299. Average homeowner's property tax cost for the fire department is $199. Two pieces of data that I think paint a really powerful picture of the impact that public safety, that the fire department has on public safety are the monetary outcomes of property lost and property saved. And I'm going to walk really slowly through this one. When our firefighters respond to a structure fire or a fire or an appliance fire or any type of damaging event, they'll actually enter data into the RMS system or the RMS system, our records management system. They'll put a property value and then they'll calculate a property loss. So this particular slide shows you that we had a property value of $43 million that we responded to and lost the property of $347. So we claim a preserved or a saved rate of $43 million of Dubuque property. The contents, we show $14 million in contents, loss of $123,000, so property contents that are preserved are $14 million. Overall $57 million in property over the last year. And then our survivability to discharge, again, is a really powerful number. Many ways you can measure cardiac survivability. A return of spontaneous circulation, we've talked about that, when we can actually get a pulse and respirations back. One of the ones that I really celebrate and cherish is survivability to discharge. So that's when someone makes a recovery and then is actually discharged from the hospital. So our four-year survivals are 42 patients, or 42 citizens. Our call volume is the highest in 2024 that it's ever been, at 7,996. That represents approximately 22 calls per day, but more importantly, it's the 18,000 vehicle responses. That's more than 50 vehicle responses. So when you see a vehicle or hear a vehicle, that represents the entire response to whatever call that they're going to. It's not a one-for-one, so when I say 8,000 calls, it doesn't mean one vehicle went to one call. If it's cardiac arrest, you could have 3 vehicles going. If it's structure fire, you could have 5 to 6 vehicles going. Emergency medical incident count trend, we're at 6,400. EMS accounts for about 80% of what we do. Our recommended improvement request for fiscal year 26 is that pre-planned software annual support. We requested the pre-planned software and we neglected to ask for the support that comes with us year after year. So that will just continue to support that software. That map that I showed earlier that plotted out the cardiac arrests and the chest pain calls, that's what we received approval for, is the community risk reduction software. And then our CIPSE, or Center for Public Safety Excellence site visit in 2026. Capital improvement projects for fiscal year 26, fire station 6 roof replacement, our outdoor warning siren and repair and replacement CIP that we do with emergency management, that portable radio replacement, and then the bunk room remodel. And then just to keep your eyes on what's coming down the line, our fiscal year 27 and 28 vehicle replacements. We have over 20 large fleet vehicles. It represents multi-million-dollar investments. On the ambulance side, we do generate what we call cost recovery, sometimes stated as revenue. Cost recovery balances out some of the payments on some of the payer mixes that we respond to. So a citizen that we respond to falls into one of these buckets: Medicare, Medicaid, insurance, private payer, workers' comp. Medicaid is tied to our GMT cost recovery. All the others are tied to our ambulance billing, what we receive from ambulance billing. So our ambulance billing revenue or cost recovery projected for fiscal year 2026 is $4,169,000. The reason why 25 and 26 are a little hazy is they're based off of projections. They're based off of what we believe will occur in those 2 years. Our performance measures, we've got several performance measures. One of them is the number of students provided a ride-along. We've made some great progress in this. We've met those goals, or the number of career days. We've met that goal. Fire suppression minutes and seconds of first unit to scene within the 911 call. When we talk about our performance, a majority of the time we're talking about that first unit on scene. We currently perform at 7 minutes and 50 seconds. Our goal is 6 minutes and 20 seconds, so that goal is still in progress. And then the same on EMS, the first vehicle on the scene. We currently are estimating it at 7 minutes and 15 seconds, and we're shooting for 6 minutes. Training hours per month, we calculated this by the total hours. Our target is 1880, and we're estimated to hit a goal of 942, so we're still working on that one. We've seen some really great progress. We've doubled in the last couple months the number of hours that our employees are entering for training because of that training officer, that training and safety captain. And then number of personnel with Blue Card Incident Command, we have 26, so we're still gonna work toward that 38. Percentage of identified patients receiving stroke exam, we've met that goal. And then the percentage of identified patients receiving a 12-lead EKG. Number of cardiac arrest incidents in which bystander CPR is performed. That's a fantastic number. We're gonna continue to chase that number because, as you know, every minute that goes by, we lose the opportunity to revive that patient. So if a citizen can jump in and start doing CPR, we're very thankful for that. And then percentage of cardiac arrest patients alive after 14 days, we're at 15%. Then there's that ROSC number that I was talking about earlier, we're at 35%. Structure fires controlled within the room of origin, that's another important measure because there's a lot of property in people's homes that they value and cherish. So if we can keep that fire in the room of origin, and we're at 80%. And then our moderate risk effective response force, that's the number of the total response that arrives on the scene. We're at 12 minutes and 30 seconds, and we want that to be at 10 minutes and 20 seconds. This is on our prevention side. Fire escape inspections per year, they're estimating to be at 8. That's a goal met. We talked about the fire inspections. We're hitting 900 for this year. And then the smoke detector installs. That's another thing that we can use that data if we're seeing our structure fires are in a certain area and we need to get smoke detectors targeted to those areas, we'll distribute them that way. All right, that was the fire department's budget. Hopefully I kept pace with everyone else's presentation. There is one thing that I would like to say. Well-trained, well-equipped, well-cared-for public servant is one of your most important resources, and I know that we share that. We have some great men and women in the Dubuque Fire Department, and I'm very thankful. I cannot wait to see what we do in the next 5 years, because what we've done in the last 2 years has been really, really exciting. So thank you for the opportunity to present, and we'll field some questions.
All right. Well, thanks, Chief. We are in a public hearing to discuss the fire department budget for fiscal year 26. Still don't see anybody from the public here. Anyone virtually putting anything in? All right. Well, I'll kick us off with a discussion here. So first of all, thank you for just the way that both these presentations in the accreditation factor, I think, matters a lot for how you present the data to us, which is really helpful when we have to make decisions. So thank you for tracking all that you track and then asking for more things to track it and do it in a way that is going to make, the whole point is not just so you can like have a bunch of data sitting around that you look at, it's to make things better, and I love that. One of our top priorities is fire department location, which we know is coming, and staffing is the second part of that. You have 2 staffing requests in your improvement request that were not recommended. I want to talk about those a little bit more. You specifically said in the paragraph that you attached to that I'm going to bring this back to you, City Council, for the next 5 years. We're going to be talking about this, which I appreciate. So it's sort of letting us know, we're definitely going to be seeing this. I guess I want to talk about a few things. And my biggest question is, Mike, I'm going to eventually come to you here and ask, what are our thoughts on why we're not recommending this, aside from the fact that we all understand the budget is tight and we have a lot to work with here this year. But my first question is, we've heard this before. There's the national standard of having 3 firefighters versus 2 is it in specific vehicles, essentially, is what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
And you said, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, only 10% of fire departments have the type of staffing that we have, the low staffing. Otherwise, everybody else is doing it higher. So we're kicking butt in all these other areas, but then we've got a challenge in this particular area. I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, but one of my big questions about this is, if we're going to hire people, do we have to hire 2 at a time, or can we just hire one person in a year and another person in another year? Give us a little more context of this need that you have listed here, so we can have a better discussion about it.
Absolutely, and that's a great question, and thank you for asking that. On staffing, we fall in line with the approved employee-approved staffing, so the FTE. And the department's done a really good job of hiring, and being supported with over-hiring for our academies. The area that I missed the last couple of years was talking about the NFPA 1710 recommendations, and that asked for 4 on all suppression and ladder trucks. Currently, Dubuque runs at 2, and I can understand the evolution of that. When you're moving response vehicles into certain areas, sometimes that's the only way you can do it. So we talked about those 2 pieces. First unit arriving, which is so critical, because that's when you can start to stop what's happening. And so distributing people in areas which are within a certain mile is important to get services there. When you're talking about the larger scale or the effective response force, how many people it takes, that's where it's difficult when you have 2 on each vehicle, because it takes more vehicles. For example, we had a fire on Edison. Typically, we'll try to get 15 people on the scene. That might take most of the vehicles from all the stations to work the Edison fire. We now lack resiliency in the city, meaning more calls will be coming in. Now, we bring in mutual aid partners, and it can assist in certain ways, but Dubuque sits in a very unique scenario. We are the municipal fire department for approximately 45 minutes to an hour away. So pulling in those resources can be difficult. I'm not so worried about it now. We're at 8,000 calls. I am very worried about it when we get to 9,000, 10,000 calls, because you'll start to see those 2 structure fires coming. You'll see that gas leak in the structure fire. You'll see that cardiac arrest in the structure fire. Or you'll just see the fire alarm, which, because it's a high-risk fire alarm, you'll send a lot of vehicles that way. So we're building slowly. We're trying to build and see what's coming in the future and be strategic, specifically strategic about that. We know that we can't solve this problem overnight, but we know it's something that we need to continue to discuss and talk about and learn, use data, educate each other on, and that it's something we can build towards.
Thank you for all that detail. And this is not a cheap thing to ask for either. I mean, am I looking at this correctly? It's a total cost of $100,000 each position, essentially. Yeah, so it's an investment. Okay.
Well, Mr. Barry, you said you wanted me to chime in, I think you said earlier.
I did, yeah, go for it.
Great, thank you. So one of the things we have to recognize is the mayor and city council's made a tremendous investment in the fire department, as Amy presented in her PowerPoint, over the last several years, between equipment, upgrading facilities, and adding 10 positions. Now, they're not all frontline firefighter positions. You added the 3rd ambulance, that was 6 positions. You added some command staff, like in training and risk management. So that's one thing. And nothing I'm going to say means I disagree with what Amy said. Our goal eventually will be to get to what she describes. But a couple of things about that. So we've operated for 40 years. This system was implemented in Dubuque in the 1980s, when lost 10% of our population and had all the budget cuts. So I think we've operated very safely for 40 years. And Amy described the way we did it is we send more units to a call than other departments would send, because we have less people in each unit. The other thing is the idea of 2 in a unit, and Amy can correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize if I am. When we're fully staffed on each shift, or let's say a better way to say it would be when we're over the minimum staffing. And while my number won't be accurate, let's say the minimum staffing per shift is 24. We could have as high as I think 28 or 20, I think it's 28 people working if nobody was on vacation, nobody was on sick leave, nobody was on maternity leave, nobody was on military leave, go on down the line. It does happen where we have more than the minimum staff on a shift. And on those times, there are more than 2 people in different apparatus because we have those quote unquote extra people who are assigned to that shift to work that night, but and don't happen to be off for some other reason. So there are times when we do have higher levels of staffing within the vehicles. And then I just want to mention a couple of other things. So one is by the end of this year, this calendar year, so probably let's say December, we'll have the information to you about the staff, the facility study, the number of fire stations, where they should be located in the whole 9 yards. And with that, that's when I think we can have a more robust discussion about the staffing question and how do we deal with that? Is it 1 person a year and then it takes a long time? Is that all that's affordable? If it is, it is. Is it something more? I know in an ideal world, since there's 3 shifts, Amy would prefer 3 people a year because then you add 1 person per shift. And so we'll see how that ideal world works out. But the other thing I want to mention is the state legislature. So we talk a lot about the fact that the state legislature is going to do property tax reform. And quite frankly, some of the proposals they're suggesting are just, they're draconian. And so I hope that that doesn't happen. But that's not my point here. There actually was a bill introduced in the state legislature this year to take municipal fire departments and make them all countywide. So that will be really interesting. I don't think it made the funnel. I don't really remember right now. And hopefully it wouldn't pass anyway, because I don't think that's good government. But the principal idea is not particularly bad. And we're the beneficiary of that in Dubuque. So it was talked about earlier about the way that we have a countywide training center, that the city and the county volunteer departments all pitched in to make that happen, that we have really robust training programs and training standards, even for the volunteers. And so the fact that we have this cadre of extremely highly trained, talented volunteers outside the city limits where we have mutual aid agreements, that's really to the benefit of our residents, to us as a local government, and of course to them, because we provide help to them too. So there's a big mix here, and it's just not a numbers thing. You have to have this many people in this unit every night of the week. It's a really much bigger picture than that. I'm not saying that might not be a great goal, but I have a high level of confidence that we have a high level of public safety today. The way we're structured, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be structured differently. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for all that, Mike. Would you add anything else to that, Chief? And
Yeah, his numbers are spot on. We have minimum staffing of 24 for each shift, which means we need that many before we start to hire back for overtime, and we can fluctuate up to 32. So the Edison Fire, we happened to be staffed a little bit better, and so we had more people on the scene, which made a difference. Yeah, it's a fine balance. You don't want to go too far one side where you have, 4 people on a vehicle all the time. I mean, that's ideal. That's what the standard is, but it is a fine balance with the leave that we have, the vacation slots that we pick. You have to do a big calculation on what time people have in order to approve the slots that they can pick each year at the end of the year. So it is complex, but it's something that I do well. It's something that I'm versed in, and I'm following it and making sure that it's impacted appropriately, and love continued discussion on it, because this is something that you lean into.
Yeah. One final brief thing, and then I'll open it up for the rest of us, because I'd love to hear what people think about this and other things. But, we did talk a lot about this, and this has bounced around on the goals and priorities for council as we've basically waited for the opportunity to have the good data on the location study. Hearing that we really should be expecting that this calendar year, then I think, my intention would be that we keep this on the list for goals and priorities as one of the top priorities in the next year, because I think it's going to be really important. Not that we're going to litigate that here, but just to put that in everybody's head is something that I think is really important to see where we need to go with this going forward. But we'll have much better data to work with, I think, in the year ahead. Open it up. Mr. Jones?
Well, of course, I'm very proud of everybody in the fire department and the job that they're doing. All these folks in the white shirts in the back that are in command positions, I've either dealt with on their path to employment at the fire department or dealt with briefly while I was still there. And in every case, I made this comment about the National Guard folks I met last week. In every case, these leaders are exactly who you'd want your son or daughter to be with if things got really bad. So hats off to all of you, and thank you very much. Historically, it's 1979. I was president of the fire union at the time. The council sat here and had a choice between cutting a station, and the one that was offered up was Station 5 on South Grandview. Probably a wise move in the fire chief, because he expected a big political pushback, and it didn't happen, the political pushback. The political pushback happened a little bit, external from the neighborhood, and the determination that the council made, and I think the right one for the times, was to instead reduce staffing to two-person companies. Now, as a firefighters union, we resisted that tremendously, but we also understood that you talked about, why is there a fire truck going on emergency medical calls? Well, we talk about first responders a lot, and the person that's going to make a difference in cardiac arrest isn't the most highly trained paramedic that walks in the room. It's the first person that can walk in the room and get compressions going and get the airway opened up a little bit. The first person matters more than the highest level of care. That first person matters more than the intensive care unit where the patient's ultimately going to go. Because if that first person isn't there quickly, that patient's chances go down the drain very, very quickly. So what we had to do as a fire department was learn how to cope with that. And what happened was, instead of 2 engines on a ladder going to a fire in a command vehicle, we were doing 3 engines, 2 ladders, command vehicle and ambulance, to get those 15 bodies that are critical to NFPA to be able to fight a fire. Okay, we could do that. We can run a lot of vehicles. We can't meet the timeline yet. But what are we missing? Well, prior to that reduction in force in 1979, the department could come up with 2 engines on a ladder to go to that second structure fire if it occurred during the first. And while that's a rare occurrence, and while we've replaced a lot of that depth with mutual aid, as the manager pointed out, it's certainly not optimum. So I totally support incrementally finding our way back to at least 3-person staffing on engines, and perhaps more on ladders, because their mission is a little different on the fire scene, and that's a whole different educational conversation to have. What we've done with EMS is great. We've got 6 stations. We've now got full advanced cardiac life support capabilities on each of those engines, so the care starts right now, first person through the door. The first person through the door is one of these blue-suited folks over here. They're carrying an AED and some skills with them as well. So that first person is getting there. We've got that really pretty well covered with the AEDs and the police units, with the advanced care and all of our fire engines. What we don't have is the depth for the big incidents. And we need that badly, because they're coming. And the small incidents, what used to be handled as a small incident, is kind of a bigger deal now. We saw the consequences of a gas leak. Hardly ever goes kaboom. But boy, we saw a big one a couple years ago on Loris Boulevard. And I think it took everybody by surprise, because they hardly ever blow up. Unlike the movies where every single car crash bursts into flames, that one actually hardly does ever happen. And that's kind of good to know. Anyhow, we've made do very well with what we had and made it work. And that's what Chief Scheller is still up against, is how to make do with what she has, and she's making it work. She managed to get the thing. she and Steinis and the troops here managed to get this thing accredited, despite the fact that we're very low on human resources compared to most fire departments. So that the move in that direction is an important one and a good one, and I support everything that we can do for that. But the big picture is we're seeing our federal funding streams snipped, delayed, maybe canceled, maybe not. We're seeing our state legislature kind of take, frankly, an anti-city government stance the last 3 or 4 years. And now they're looking at property tax. And everything in this room is funded by property tax. So how do you do it? That becomes a challenge. Thank God we've got the DRA enhancing the city's income and making it a little bit easier. And frankly, we're going to have it a lot easier than most cities that don't have that. So that's kind of what we've got to look forward to sitting here. I know it's a long story. I hope it was helpful to everybody trying to figure out the history of how we got here and how we stayed here so long. And how we stayed here so long is we got good at it. And Mike alluded to that. We got adequate. We got better than adequate. We got good outcomes in spite of it. But we're still balancing risk versus benefit at a pretty high scale, taking that many units out of service for one incident in a city this size that could certainly have multiple incidents at any given moment. So thank you very much. Sorry to soapbox.
Yeah. Mr. Resnick, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Chief, thank you for the presentation. I noticed on slide 27 of 34 that it looks like, well, we have $4 million plus in operating revenue, but 75% of that is from Medicare and Medicaid. So I'm wondering, if there are federal Medicare, Medicaid cuts, how would that affect our ability to support the fire protection in Dubuque? And then how do you make plans for something that, something like that to get us through to the next year?
So as far as the GEMT reimbursement?
It says ambulance billing payer mix. Medicare is 52%, Medicaid is 22.5%, and then you have these other ambulance situations.
Yeah, so as far as the GEMT revenue, we're projected in fiscal year '25 to bring in 1,911,000, or the GMT revenue at 2,400,000. I'm not sure if we've heard what the impact would be on that pass-through at the national level, but I would assume that we would still collect that revenue, just like our billing side. I know that there's struggles sometimes with the billing, but usually we're able to, with time, collect that. I don't know if Sam or if you have any additional information. He's coming. Yeah, come on up. Come on. He's our billing expert. First, I make sure I get the question right on revenue. So.
So Sam Janicki, Mayor, Council. My understanding of the question, I'll just repeat it back to you so I'm answering the right question. You took a look at the payer mix, and you see that about 50% of our payer mix is Medicare, and another 22.5% is Medicaid, so roughly the 75% comes from really other government entities that are paying us. And so really to answer your question as far as if there's any cutbacks, I know as far as the federal level, Medicare just actually over the last 4 years, for the first time ever, had 100% of the ambulance services in the nation do a cost report and submit that data. That is currently being reviewed and is projected to have that data presented back here within the next couple of months. And so that's being reviewed by the Centers for Medicare, Medicaid Services, so CMS. They're reviewing whether there needs to be an increase in revenue or a decrease. And so we should have a really good idea on that here within the next couple of months. We are projecting, I think ambulance services in general are projecting that there's going to be an increase just based on the data that was presented. As far as the Medicaid revenue, and Chief referenced specifically the GEMT revenue, that was a state legislative move in 2019 to add that GEMT stands for the Ground Emergency Medical Transport. So essentially what that does is every year we as an entity have to submit a cost report that demonstrates what it costs us to provide that service for every Medicaid patient that we transport. And based on that cost report, The federal government provides basically they fill the gap, so to speak, on the difference between what Medicaid is providing in revenue versus what it actually costs us as a city to provide that service for those Medicaid patients. And so at this point, that's a state legislative piece that would have to be changed for us to not receive that revenue. And so that is dependent every year based on the cost that it costs to us as a city that it takes to provide that service.
And if I understood the chief correctly, that if those, if there's a reduction in those Medicare and Medicaid, that we would be paid, but probably more from the, I mean, we are going to get paid, whether it's from the citizens directly or from their insurance or how they, but we need to be reimbursed. Did I understand that correctly, Chief? That just because those funds would be reduced, that doesn't mean that we would be reduced, that burden would go on to the citizens or their insurance or some other type of thing?
Yeah, the payer mix just defines each of those buckets that we can receive funding for, and it can be a complex topic. So I try to divide out, what we try to do is divide out that GEMT portion and that percentage, which is impacted by this federal reimbursement, a cost recovery, versus what the insurance companies collect or what self-pay collects or what workers' comp collects. And so there's two pieces of data, and that graph showed it very well with the GEMT piece and then the other balancing piece. So as far as the GEMT with some of the things that are going on, I don't think, I haven't heard of any impacts of that yet, but I think Sam did a fantastic job explaining that it's in place now. I'm sure we would have heard of impacts on it, but we'll keep a close eye. In fact, every year we seem to increase or improve that based off of a lot of strategies that come from the EMS Bureau. Great example was that that cost reporting that was done last year or the previous year was 11% for that company to do that cost report. The Bureau negotiated that down to 6%, which saved a couple $100,000. Same thing, we have to be mindful of our EMS billing service provider. They'll charge 3.5%. When we go back out for an RFP or request for proposal, we have to make sure that that provider knows what they're doing, knows how to collect those dollars, knows the proper coding, so we get the maximum reimbursement. Very, very complex piece, but a big piece in the fire service from 2019, 2018, where departments were jumping into this realm and really seeing their transport services as a way of not generating revenue, but closing that gap on what we were paying out or, to support an EMS system.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Real quick to follow up on that, what happens if somebody's 100% uninsured? Where is there a revenue captured from that, from transporting that particular patient or that person?
Yes, so if a patient is uninsured, we will attempt to collect via private pay. We do have a clause or a means to potentially write off of that balance if there is a federal need demonstrated. So we do have a hardship application process, just as we don't want to penalize someone that doesn't have the means of paying. But we do also have a process in place that other city departments are taking advantage of. In Iowa, it's called the set-off program. And so if we do have an outstanding ambulance bill, it's considered a municipal bill that can be paid via Iowa income tax refund garnishment or casino earnings garnishment. And so we do take advantage of that program as well.
Does that pay back 100% of the lost?
It does.
Okay.
Yes. So
Okay.
it's incremental. So sometimes,
Yep.
we may not need it all at one time, but we do see a pretty significant revenue stream from that.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. So in a roundabout way, what we just said is that Medicare and Medicaid cuts directly would not necessarily impact the amount of money you're able to collect on these services based on the systems that are created for you to collect funds to reimburse those services. Okay. All right. That's helpful information. Thank you. Next up, Ms. Weffel.
I'll actually, before you go, there's a question I had. So, for instance, for Medicare reimbursement and healthcare, we are paid at a different rate in Iowa as opposed to other states. Is it similar for fire?
It is, yes. And so, and then the Medicaid rate is actually a percentage of the Medicare rate. And so every state is set differently. You know, at a hospital level or other clinic level, I think you're probably familiar with the annual cost reports that do have to be submitted, and that's a new process for EMS. And so
Okay.
I anticipate, there's nothing official, but I anticipate that that's probably going to become a regular process for ambulance services moving forward once the stat is released and reviewed. I believe it's at the Congress level that they have a subcommittee that's working on that. But yes, each state does have its own rate structure.
But the cost report is unique to the EMS service that's being done right now that will apply to your reimbursement moving forward. Like you're saying the cost report you discussed was one
Correct.
directly
So
related
there's
to
actually,
EMS.
there's two different cost reports. There's one that we have been doing annually since 2019 for the Medicaid GEMT
Okay.
Cost reporting. At the beginning of my comments, I referenced one that was done at a national level, so very similar process. But that was a request on behalf of Medicare for all ambulance services across the nation to submit that data, and then they're looking at that at a national level to determine whether ambulance reimbursement rates need to increase in general across the nation.
Well, I'm just going to put my plug in that the reason that our reimbursement rates are low in Iowa is because we do things incredibly efficiently. We do them very cost effectively, and we get really good care in the state of Iowa for less money, and it's because we got people that do a really good job, like you guys. Maybe I'll just go through my question list here. We had a comment from Mr. Van Milligan about volunteer services as it would apply, even kind of future legislation that's been discussed. I grew up in a tiny little town with only volunteer fire. They were my next door neighbors. And when my own family had a structure fire, they were there. They put it out. My bike melted. But other than that, we were good to go. I will say I have incredible respect for all of our community fire. They do an amazing job. They also have other full-time jobs and families. You are a professional force, and I feel strongly that from what I hear in small towns, it's really difficult for them to recruit the people they need to keep their force and their rotations going. Is that an accurate assessment that you would say from small towns in our communities?
I would agree. They're
Okay.
facing similar challenges that we're facing.
And so we have fewer and fewer people who are able or are willing to volunteer in smaller communities in our county. And so I am worried about any thought of being able to fall back on folks who are volunteering their services and shrinking in number. So I just wanted to be transparent with my concern with that. Structure fire question. I can't remember how or where I was told this, but I feel like I had heard from someone that when you have a structure fire, you have to have more than 2 people on scene before you can even enter the structure. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's a national standard. It's called the 2 in, 2 out.
Okay. And so, in essence, we could have a third person on every single vehicle, and then we could approach that fire with the first vehicle as opposed to having to wait for the second vehicle.
I would say that would be incorrect because you'd have to have 2 properly trained people on the outside of the building before you can send the 2 people to the inside of the building.
So that's where the 4-person comes
That's
in.
where, yeah, yes.
Got it.
Yep.
So if we had 4 people on every vehicle, then we would be able to have the first structure enter the building immediately because we had 2 inside, 2 outside.
Correct. Under that standard, obviously, if there was an imminent rescue or some, and there's things that company can do by stretching a hand line and getting a water supply. But yes, you are correct.
Okay, all right. And I just, trying to recall that, I think it speaks to the urgency of the priority of staffing each vehicle with 4 people. As far as it goes with structure, I asked emergency management this, and in your situation, as it relates to infrastructure and say water infrastructure and support. Do you have what you need
As far as the infrastructure, fire stations,
for water supply for fire?
we do. We're well equipped with the hydrants and the infrastructure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Firm.
So great presentation, and like I mentioned to you before we started, I feel even more safe hearing all the statistics and all that you guys do for us, so thank you. I'm taking a look at our document, which lists out all the technology services that you use, and it looks like you have so many enabling technologies to help you perform better, quicker, faster. Are there any technologies that you are missing that would make you even more efficient?
Wow, yes.
Could you share with us?
Yeah, I'll share one technology that we're working towards from an emergency management standpoint, and that's an incident action plan builder. So currently there's individual sheets, and I'm probably not the best one to speak on this, but Tom's not here, so I get to speak on it. Incident action plans are plans that you use for any type of disaster, a flood, a winter storm, derecho, which I never knew about until I came to Iowa. Learning a lot about that. It just provides you a platform to enter information quickly. Mayor, you were at an explosion with me. We did a basic brief out. That incident action plan can be created right on the fly. So just basic stuff. We'll propose those when we believe we're in a position to really put those into play and hit the ground running. I think we're still doing some basic training, and some of the emergency management preparedness stuff that we're doing with our leadership teams has been really, it's been a great opportunity for people to be enlightened on what's going on and how to do those things. But yeah, they're always leaning into technology, but sometimes you can be too aggressive and have too much technology and not put it into place. So I think we're in a good spot right now.
Okay, so does that build on the CAD CAM or the CAD workstation that you have as well? Is it going to be a separate one, or does it build into the CAD system?
This is separate. It's a freestanding third party. Yeah, it just prevents us from having to do like an IAP 201, 202, 203 individually. You can work in a system. Very similar to where technologies are going this day, not only for EMS reporting, but for fire training. They're just revolutionizing it, make it more efficient.
And are you still using drones? I know at one point you had mentioned that to us. Can you give us some statistics about that?
Yeah, I don't have the stats. Well, maybe I do. My very first call here in Dubuque, we used the drone. It was on a hazardous materials leak that some hydraulic fluid went into the Mississippi at the Ice Harbor. And so by deploying the drone, we were able to visualize where the leak was, deploy the booms, and then we were able to take pictures regularly to document where or how much impact that leak had. Very similar, PD assists us with drone operations at structure fires, where we can actually use the thermal imaging to see where the fire is in the structure. Oftentimes, some of these older balloon frame construction buildings, they have hidden space where fire cannot be seen, but these drones can visualize them. I would say as far as deploying the drone, it's not a high frequency event, but it's one of those events when you do deploy it, you get a lot of really good information. Like I said, I just saw a presentation from the Gilbert Fire Department on some mechanical and robotics tools that they're using to work their way into hazardous material incidents and to document events like a tornado, what the damage is, and do windshield survey. It can deploy, there's some great things in the future of deploying drones ahead of responders. I know Jeremy has talked a lot about that as far as getting the right response or downgrading a response quickly for that resiliency. Hey, we got the drone there, there's nothing showing, or there's nothing going on, so reduce the response. But very, very minimal, I would say less than six times a year that we deploy that drone.
All right, well, thank you for that. And then just one more question about your firefighters, and the police department has a goal of 30%. Do you have a goal as well that you could share?
I would love that goal. They inspire me when I hear them talk about that 30%. Being female in the fire service, it's a data point that I have chased my entire career. I've been tapped on the shoulder to talk at every high school event, every college event. We have 4 firefighters that are female on the department now of 104, so we're at a lower percentage, but it's something that I would love to have as one of the benchmark accomplishments before I retire, is to make sure that we see some differences as far as the percentages on female firefighters and different demographics.
Is there anything we can do to help that?
You're helping us with the overhire strategy. You're helping us with the approvals to change our hiring processes. We're thinking creatively. We've got a talented group behind me and in our organization that really remove and think about removing those barriers, what might prevent someone, for example, from testing. For example, having a virtual test. It's huge. We're not getting a lot of numbers as of yet because I don't believe people really understand or know that, but it will keep people in their home if they're a single parent or if they're working a particular schedule. It'll allow them to take the test from a library or from their home instead of coming in and dedicating that one day. Same with interviews. We'll have interviews on weekends and at odd hours, but yeah, we continue to appreciate the support that we're being provided. And like I said, it's been a really exciting last couple years for me, and I know for the organization, and to see the talent of these men and women and how they can perform when they're well-equipped has been an honor.
Well, you're the perfect role model and example, so, onward. Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you again for the presentation.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a great discussion. So can you do me a favor? Can you go back to your property tax support slide? Just scroll back to that one for us. The one with the little fence on it that everybody has in their presentation. So this is interesting every time because these are always such eye-popping numbers when you guys are in the room. So it's, fire has this and police was a little higher, right? I mean, a little higher than this, and emergency communications is fairly high. It's a good place to make the point that when we talk about property taxes, this is where the majority of that money goes. There's a few departments that in the city, in any city really, that eat up the most of that property tax revenue that we receive. And I just want people to make sure that we recognize that when we're talking about this and agonizing for 4 straight days over the numbers and the budget and how we have to squeeze all these things out of the numbers that we get, that what you're paying for is extremely important to your life in this city, and especially to the safety of you and the people you care about the most and the places you care about the most. And I think it's an important piece to continually point out because, everybody always says nobody likes to pay taxes. But I do think that we like having a fire department and a police department and all these things. I think we enjoy that. I think it's something that's important to us. And I hope that we recognize that as we talk about this and agonize over these numbers, we're investing in the services that you just described all night long, that you just described and talked about, and how important that is. And as we talk about the possibility of changing that system, that we don't lose that focus. Because I do think the system of property taxation is going to change fairly drastically in the state of Iowa, if not this coming year, in the next year. I think we are going to face this, and we need to be, and we are a part of that discussion. We're an active part of that discussion in the legislature right now. But as we have that discussion, this needs to be one of the centerpieces of that, is that these services are necessary in our modern society. All the things we talked about are absolutely necessary here. So hopefully we can continue to have that focus, because I'm inspired by what I hear tonight. I mean, I was inspired by your presentation, Chief. You're doing some really good work. I can see why you're so excited in the last couple of years. I hear from your firefighters that they're excited about the things that are going on. We're excited about what's going forward. I think we wish we had more resources to be able to do all these things. I mean, we'd love to be able to just give you those 2 positions tonight, and move forward from that. But I also very much appreciate that we're going to make a conscious and careful decision about those positions going forward. So I'm glad that we are where we are, and I feel like we're pointed in the right direction. We just, again, kind of from the last presentation, no finish line. We got to stay focused there. Mike, I think I hear you lurking. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Boy, that must be giving off some vibes or something. Well, so I have to tell you, there's nobody more excited than these services than me. Because the reason I'm not there at the meeting tonight is because on March 27th, I was hit by a hit and run drunk driver. And I feel bad that I didn't say anything during the 911 portion or the police portion, because a lot of things had to go right for me to be in the situation I'm in right now, which is pretty darn good for having gotten hit by a car. The first thing that had to happen was retired sheriff's deputy Harley Potoff had to have the presence of mind to drag me off the street so I didn't get run over again. And then, of course, somebody had the presence of mind to call 911 And the reaction of the 911 center was to get me help. And of course, the police showed up first, immediately seeing what, could be done for me. Then, of course, the ambulance showed up with our unbelievably skilled and trained firefighters that, I mean, what a blessing. And I can tell you, even in the midst of it, I was appreciating the blessing. And then they got me to the hospital, and Katie talked about the quality healthcare we have in this community. And, here I sit, and I'm going to have I'm sure, a great recovery. No fun getting there, but I want to thank everybody that was a part of that every step in the way. And especially want to thank the fire department who got me off that ground and got me to the hospital. So thank you.
Well, Mike, that's a perfect closer for this week. So thank you very much for saying that. And we're glad you're doing well in your recovery. Chief, thank you very much for being here. Everybody, thanks for tonight. This was great. Really appreciate all the great information and the great discussion that ensued. We are closing out the week. No more business. We are adjourned.